I call the work session for Tuesday, June 13th to order. We begin with planning commission decisions. All right, anybody will have anything they want to gripe about while we're here?
Just anything?
Anything about planning.
Oh.
We talk about Ratson while we're here. All right. How about legislative review? We go to concealed carry and open carry in town buildings for second reading.
Council, this has not changed since first reading. This is a bill to bring in line our open carry with, our concealed carry policy with our open carry and to ban both in town buildings. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you. Everybody good with this except for Jay and Jeffrey?
You know, I think I'm gonna vote for it. Yeah.
Because I was gonna take your side.
They just help. Pull me, Carol will me down. Yeah.
2023 National Electric Code Adoption, also second reading. You don't have a microphone there.
Come down here on the table, so, sorry.
All kinds of options.
More like a Senate hearing if you sit in front of us.
Use them all.
Okay. We're bringing forth 2023 National Electric Code for the second reading,
I had to come down for just that.
which it's
Eric should have done it for you.
just about it.
We didn't have any changes, I don't think.
No changes whatsoever.
Okay, any questions? All right, thank you.
Good
Thanks.
presentation, thanks.
Renewable Energy Mitigation Program Ordinance, first reading. Late, Rick.
The staff's lost a step lately.
Yeah, why does it take it so long to get down?
Yeah,
Just
Right.
getting warmed up. Mayor and council, before you is a draft ordinance for first reading related to the outdoor energy use renewable energy mitigation program, also known as REMP. Outlined in your packet, we have highlighted the places where we changed the draft language from the previous work session based on direction from council. Specifically, we removed the hardship provisions that we discussed. Further analysis by staff felt like this policy in general is a choice, and so we didn't need to allow for any particular hardship clauses. We also changed updated policy 33R, which is the next memo in your packet, to help incentivize the electrification piece, and also to create policy 33, the absolute policy 33, which we did not have before, which limits the number of indoor fireplaces allowed. Mark, did you want to add anything else to policy 33?
Jesse. Yeah, so 33A actually sets a limit on 3 maximum fireplaces now. It's based on recommendation from the Planning Commission. I think it's a good one. It's like you can choose if you want to do 1 outdoors or you can do all 3 indoors. I mean, commission was pretty much like, yeah, outdoor use is what we're really concerned about. So why not just make an option? Because I think at the last meeting, council suggested 2 indoors, 1 outdoor. So anyway, they can do that if they want, or they can just do all 3 indoors. And then the electrification piece, we thought that was something that's pretty significant and important. And so a +4 is not something we typically provide too many options for in terms of positive points, but we think in this case it's warranted. We certainly want to hear council's feedback on that. Carol did called me yesterday and just brought up a point that it's possible someone could make a claim that they qualified for the +4 under 2 of those 3 listed under section E, because the second one talks about existing uses that basically disconnect, and then the third one's like additions, so you could still have an existing use. So we would maybe recommend a friendly amendment to just say a maximum of +4 can be, taken, earned under this section. So.
That's nice work, Carol.
Yeah.
And then the other thing we did was we adjusted the threshold for residential to 1,000 square feet down from 1,500 previously. And then we put in increments of 250 square feet beyond that where you get the accrued negative points.
Dick?
So for the +4 points, that means no outdoor fireplace, no indoor fireplace, no gas connection whatsoever.
Yeah. I guess what we hadn't thought about is like propane or something like that. I think you could probably still do that.
There was something in the memo about the propane, not like large propane not being allowed in.
Yeah.
In the town, but you're talking about like the little 20.
Yeah, just little
containers.
20-pound tanks. I mean, we weren't getting
20
into that really.
pounders I'm
Yeah.
fine with, but
Yeah,
I want to be sure there's no
Yeah,
no
nothing.
gaps in it where they could work their way in.
Based on the utility connection.
Great.
Do we even allow wood burning stoves anymore? Yeah, I know this.
We do. We allow 1 per home
Really?
it's got to be EPA phase 2 certified.
Oh, okay.
And you could burn wood outside.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah. Neighbor's yard. Yeah.
Mark, with,
Right, sure.
with the fireplaces, would there be any possibility instead of limiting it by number to limit it by BTUs or another metric? Just the nature of someone might have 1 massive fireplace or 3 massive fireplaces versus little fireplaces. Is the logistics of regulating that too difficult to put within our code?
We could look at that. I mean, we kind of took a crack at that when we set the thresholds to begin with 150,000 for a residential. If that's something the council wanted us to do, some overall BTU use as opposed to it. And you know, really indoors versus outdoors is a different thing. So. Yeah.
I don't have nearly the heartburn over the indoor fireplaces. I gotta tell you, I just don't. I'm even a little torn about limiting them, but. And I get the reason why. I did not agree with the analysis that they won't heat a room. They do heat a room.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they really do. That thing that you sent, I disagree with the. I mean, we have one in our house that heats a room easily. It's pretty small. It's great to have. We have a smaller house though, so we only have, 2 fireplaces, so that's not a deal, but.
We use acid to do a little bit of heat.
Yeah. I know they're less efficient.
Yeah.
Supposedly, but,
They do make the place romantic though.
oh,
Mark, a couple questions. I was just, and I don't, if I'm getting too far in the weeds, please let me know. But going through the ordinance, I have concern of what kind of hardship this puts on our architects and our builders of trying to navigate through the ramp ordinance. And for example, one of the hot tub blurb, it's line 26 on page 4 of the ordinance. And it says hot tub and spa heating appliances will have a minimum efficiency of 92% AFUE. Electric resistance and heat pumps, heaters will be allowed. And I'm just like, so do all builders know what 92% AFUE means and how that relates? And to move forward on that, there's on page 6, it goes into the ground source heat pumps performance of 3.0 inclusion and design conditions of determining COP will be 30 F ground loop temperature. And like, it goes very, very technical in this ordinance. And as a non-builder myself, and as a non-architect, I look at this and it could be Greek. So I guess my question is the language that's in this, is this plain English for someone that's in the trade?
I believe it is. And Rick, do you agree with that?
Great. And then when I was playing around with the spreadsheet a little bit and taking a look at it, if with the hot tub, I was under the impression that one single use, like a 7-foot by 7-foot personal hot tub for a single family residence would be exempt from this?
Correct.
Okay. Great.
Jesse, is there, I feel like this is not about the REM question specifically, but it's more about the heat pumps and sort of our lessons learned from recent installations from the town. I would just be really interested because I know we have a huge amount of resistance for good reason. I mean, it's new technology, not everybody works on these, but it would be really nice if we could partner with people in our community, contractors, whomever, and help like just start a conversation about here's what we did that is working. Here are the brands that we've used. Here are the people who have customer service that's decent, and just be really transparent about what is working and some of the things that aren't working, because I just think the more we can encourage that partnership, the bigger steps forward we're going to take. Because I thought it was brilliant to put in the +4. I think that, more than having a conversation like with contractors that say, or architects that say like, hey, please encourage heat pumps. And then, it's just so much more meaningful to give those points out. That'll really push the conversation in some, at some level. But I do think that there's just an enormous amount of not knowing about that technology that maybe we could help with.
100%. Couple of things just coming down the pike. There is a series of webinars and in-person workshops that HC3 is hosting in partnership with both heat pump manufacturers and the Colorado Energy Office coming up this summer. There's one in-person one on Thursday night, which I recognize as Breck's Town Party, but so definitely check those out. It's both for contractors and homeowners. So there's two different target audiences. We've been pushing that information out through our email list to the contractors. So that's one opportunity. Another is that we're partnering through the Summit Climate Collaborative to apply for some energy block grant funding to help support contractor training and workshops, so that it's not just kind of us regurgitating things that we've learned in conferences and you know, in the climate space, but rather hearing from the people that are actually doing this work. So there's a couple of different things at play, but that is 100% at the top of our list, because we know we can't require and mandate these heat pumps and electrification until the workforce is there.
Mhm. And I think one of the big stumbling blocks, or maybe just a convenient, excuse is, yeah, they do workplaces, they don't work here. And so I think just having, like, it's great to have a seminar, and I don't know who these people are, but if they're like from Alabama talking about their installation processes, then it's just not that helpful. And so I do think, even if it's just putting the information out here that at Alta Verde, this is what we used, or at whatever the other one where we used it, this is what we used, and just helping show that it's in place, it's working. And if they're not working, then being honest and telling them what didn't work about. So I'd love to see that. I think it would help.
Absolutely.
Water features in commercial. Whenever I scan the peak gate in the mornings and see that wall of water's just steaming away when it's 10 below. Do we have any thoughts on that? I mean, you can't cover them. I mean,
Nope.
we're requiring covering pools and covering hot tubs now on commercial, which I think is great.
Water features do incur negative points under policy 33R.
Oh, okay. Yes.
They're in there. It's not part of REMP. It's not contemplated in REMP, but it's one of the like original
I
energy.
don't know if that was
features.
even considered a water feature when it went in though.
Pour over wall.
I feel that's just a pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a water
Considered a pool
feature
and not a
that-
water
that
feature.
has active play for families is, to me, a little more positive
Yeah,
than
pools
just an
are-
aesthetic
Right,
waste of energy.
right. But I don't think we regarded that as a water feature
At that time.
at the time.
Something to think about, Jesse.
Yeah,
Pools do get negative points.
right.
Square foot
Right.
increments.
Like Dick says, you can cover those where the water.
Well, they're
feature
required to cover them.
Yeah, the water feature itself just runs
I see what you're saying.
constantly over a wall.
Mhm.
That's a good point, Dick.
Well, if it is considered a pool under REMP, they would have to mitigate it. So it is in both policy 33 and in REMP, if it's a pool. But the water features, like if it's just a fountain, it's not in
The
REMP.
20-foot wall, stone wall where water's pouring over it, and it's heated
Oh,
water, so it's just steaming like crazy. On a cold morning. So something to think about,
Okay.
because, and it pours into, I don't know if that's considered a hot tub or a pool below it, probably a hot
Whatever it
tub.
is, yeah.
So,
Point. Anything else?
The only other thing I would mention is just this ordinance also establishes the special fund for revenues under this fee, and establishes the uses that it can be applied towards. Great.
Good. All right, thank you. Revisions to 33.
Up to that, we already went over
Pretty much
that,
same
so
stuff,
we'll,
yeah.
we'll do them separately this evening.
All right, resolution adopting an advocacy policy for state legislative process by resolution.
Mayor and council, we've talked about this a couple times now, most previously at the retreat. This was getting some framework in place for when we begin the next state session in 2024, and making sure that we're a well-oiled group and know who's speaking on behalf of the town. Do you have any questions? And I know we might make some minor modifications based on some comments from the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem. But if you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
it's more maybe a concern. I certainly think this policy is needed and it clarifies a lot, which is great. Just a little concerned about getting too formal, requiring forms and everything for people that are asking us to join them in advocacy. If it's a grassroots, it's just one more obstacle that, if somebody's really doing something good and wants us to support it, I don't want to create too many obstacles and I don't know.
But do we have a vetting to see if in fact they are doing
Yeah,
something?
we have the committee to vet it.
Yeah.
It's just one more step for that
Oh, I
group
get
to
it.
have to go through to get to the committee.
Right. So keep us from getting bamboozled.
Well, it
But
could.
isn't it important that they go to the committee just so that we know we're all on the same page?
Well, I mean, when they ask the town to join them in advocacy, that request will automatically go to the committee.
Yeah.
I don't know. I might be
If it helps.
splitting hairs, but if somebody's out there advocating, we work so hard to try to get people be involved and be educated and be, and so they've taken the step to advocate and I don't want to have barriers.
I agree. As long as the council as a group agrees with what they're advocating for.
Correct.
I mean.
Yeah,
it's
there
all-
still has to be a process.
It's
It's
fine
just how
until
formal.
that advocacy group is for,
Yeah.
something we don't agree with, or half of us don't agree with.
Yeah.
It gets a little sticky.
I do think there was reference to a form in there, but I don't anticipate making people do it
Okay.
to make it.
As long as we don't
It-
have to be super strict and formal about it, that's
No.
all I was concerned about.
I just think if we wanted more information from them on, details, it might be helpful to ask them to put something in writing, but I don't anticipate that happening. We're really responsive to the
Okay,
advocacy groups.
well, yeah, and I know we are, and I want to continue to be, but it still needs to be vetted. I agree with you, Eric, So, great, thanks.
Kirsten, can I ask, just clarifying, so I think you made it very clear when we're weighing in as individuals, how we weigh in, but what's appropriate of like Eric and I recently got a sign-on letter request, and it's something I think they maybe just wanted as many council people as possible. So it's an individual request. Is it okay if we use like our Town of Breck email, send it to our colleagues and say, as individuals, if you're interested in signing on, go ahead?
Yeah, so I guess it depends on what kind of bucket of support it falls into. This was intended to be limited to laws that potentially bind us. But there are so many other ways that you can speak on behalf of the town, whether it's through proclamation, resolution, which is the best way because then you're voting and it's truly a town position. I have seen situations where like the federal government is doing something and is asking for council members individually to sign on. I would imagine that just immediately goes through the administration. And then if for some reason we think that it's not the entire town council and, that might be the only time that I would envision that we wouldn't want you individually.
And some of
signing on.
Bennett's stuff,
Yeah.
they were doing with the whole range and
Stuff,
Yeah.
mainly from Mountain Pact
Yeah.
and others. I mean, there's climate communities, there are a whole bunch of organizations that look for sign-ons.
I would say that we should look at this one as really about the state session and the federal session, but as time goes on and we look at these other things, maybe we can think of ways to address those as well, but I'm sure that's working just fine.
Okay.
It really matters in an entity where you're disagreeing. Here, you haven't faced that, so I think it's fine. It's when you get to a point where you have some members are vocally opposed that you want the body acting on it.
Kind of like 213 when we had commissioners against it and that didn't feel good, it's something I mean, I'm all for the process.
Good,
Great.
good. All right, thank you. Summit County Child Care Tuition Assistance, IGA by resolution, Rick.
over the past year, we've been working collaboratively with the other communities in the county to do a countywide tuition assistance program for childcare. I think this is a great step forward and having one process that serves the whole county and helps spread out the good work that's been going on in Breckenridge for many years. And so this IGA will allow us to do that. And you can see in there, the budget for the first year has been set at 1.2. How it's been divided up was very scientific. And yeah, so if we get, we do have the ability for the working group, which is really the town managers, county manager or designees, to look at that each year and decide what's the equitable amount. But in all seriousness, I'll tell you that, I mean, the managers, we didn't go do an analysis of jobs, what drives childcare?
Having said,
Necessarily child,
Yeah.
but it's jobs, right? I mean, it's not people, because if they're working, they need childcare and so do we base it on number of jobs in the community or this and that? And so we know historically when we share in costs, and one of the things we share in costs for, over 20 years is the 911 communication center. And we've looked at the different funding models of that, different ways, and it always seemed to break out in that where that Breck's in that mid-30s and the county similar, and Frisco and Silverthorne in the low 20s and Dillon's in the teens. And so we just kind of put it on a napkin and wanted to pull Blue River in a small amount and get them, behind this a little bit too. Even though they really don't have jobs, but they have people that we know are using our stuff.
jobs here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems fair,
That's where we're at. And, when you look at the cost, this is still much less expensive than what we've historically paid when we're footing the whole bill.
Well, I will say that I think it's pretty much in line with what we've historically paid in the like.
Since we've got pre-K and.
Since we've had,
Yeah.
Summit pre-K. And that's what I think is the most convincing argument for me, is it's right in line. And it is significantly less than 4 years ago when we were paying $650,000. So it does seem to make sense.
So everybody is acting on it. Some have already adopted it. The goal is to get this approved, and we'll be, gearing up for the fall scholarships.
I mean, this is a wonderful accomplishment. It's finally it'll help us get our arms around the waiting list, because it won't be so much transit between the communities.
I had a quick clarification or question. It was, it says that Summit County government will pay the cost of SPK. Is the SPK wrapped under UPK?
So UPK is what the state is paying for, and then the county is paying for 3 and 4 year olds that are underneath that, and then what we're funding is the 6 weeks of 3 year olds that's under that.
So it's in different age groups.
Yep.
Great.
Pre-K bundled in one of their tax questions, right?
Other questions?
Is the 1.3 enough? Is that total dollar amount enough? I mean, if we had thrown in close to 700 before, I'm just
I
curious.
think they determined it based on need. I think it's
Yeah.
appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just different because now the state is funding like up to 2 days of pre-K.
Yep.
And then the county is also expanding their funding to 3 and 4 year olds. And so now we're just funding 0 to 3 year olds. And so that's why we haven't reduced the number of people we're serving. It's just the money has shifted around. So we're still serving the same.
Coming
number
from
of
other
people.
buckets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we were spending 600 before, do we want to continue to make that strong investment, right? Like I keep hearing childcare is behind, we're behind on
The problem is
teachers.
it's still a share with other towns that I don't know that you will get
Well, so
more out of them.
not only that, but so the way it's calculated is that we're trying to not let anyone spend more than 20% of their income. And that's kind of a federally acceptable amount. And so we're serving people everywhere from 10% of their income to who are paying for childcare, 10% to 20% of their income. And so that's a very widely accepted kind of calculation basis. And so And the childcare committee, you know, we've done everything from 8 to 24%, I think. And so we've done a lot of discussions and research in order to come to that 10 to 20%. And I think that it's a fair question and a great one for the committee to keep talking about. But I think that they made that decision with a lot of thought put behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I love that the other towns are stepping up. That's phenomenal. I just wonder if we want to just keep making our
Well, I-
600-700K investment
I
there.
think we are, and then some. It's just more of it's going to the capital fund. now
Yeah,
and
we
less the
still are.
operations. fund.
Perfect. Yeah, that's
We're
great.
still keeping that money.
Cool.
Within that fund, what happens to surplus funds? Does it stay within this First Steps program or does it go back to the jurisdictions?
I don't know.
It's a great question.
I don't know that they contemplated
I'm
that.
not sure they would draw it. I mean, I don't know that we would draw it from the agencies unless it was needed.
Okay,
So it's a commitment for that amount, but if there's not enough scholarships, then they wouldn't draw that much money,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
is my guess. I mean, I'll be on the working group or Shannon or one of us will be, so, yeah.
Other questions? Last call. All right. Approval of a grant agreement with the CDOT by resolution.
Brain damage document.
This in its entirety. A little wordy.
We have in front of you a resolution for approval to enter into a contract with CDOT for $675,000 of grant money for the Blue River Riverwalk project.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, what the heck?
Are any of these provisions overly cumbersome or it's just standard that we have to deal with this type of funding?
It is federal funding, so it does come with a lot of extra
Yeah.
work. However, it's not too cumbersome that we wouldn't want to accept the money.
You've seen worse.
Worse,
Yeah.
it's a nice grant because it allows for planning and design, which is rare with the federal money. Most of it's construction. So this really is fortunate for us to get some design dollars.
Questions?
I'm okay.
Jeffrey's fine with it, so we're good.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, public projects update while you're here.
Okay, everything's going well with all the projects shown here. We're fighting runoff at the dam, but everything's still going well. Chris does have a bit of an update for you on the Flume project.
Yeah, so I think we messaged in the update that next week the construction was going to start for the Flume project. The contractor had some emergency work down in the Front Range that they're finishing up. So that's going to delay 1 week, start on the 26th, then get completed in July. And the Flume closure, we've been messaging that it's going to be a week closure of the trail. And I've been meeting with the contractor. We think we can minimize that. We're kind of from the other side of the trail. And so it would only be 2 or 3 days, just be part of a week rather than a full week.
Well done.
Shannon, quick question. What has been the Riverwalk stakeholder engagement like so far? How's that going?
We've had 2 stakeholder group meetings. Low attendance, however, the businesses that have come have been very engaged and very excited to talk to us about the project.
Great, thank you.
When's the
Anything else?
dam gonna be done? Like November?
November.
Nice.
When you say they're excited to talk to us, excited, like excited or excited, like we hate this project and we have a lot to say about
Like
it?
excitable.
A lot of hate.
Okay.
Today we did Ice House. We had the mother loaded attend. And they had a lot of great feedback, a lot of suggestions, a lot of positive things to say,
Great.
like what we're doing. Gold Pan Alley, we had some comments on parking that were less favorable, but
Good. Thank you.
you're welcome.
It's important to be congenial.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Public projects update. All right,
Thank you.
mobility. Hi, Matt.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I have one update for transit, but we will start with the Breck E-Ride. Any comments, concerns, or questions?
Mm-hmm.
Can we get more bikes?
The answer to that right now is probably not, but we have asked them. Being a pilot, obviously, we're pretty limited in what we had intended, and I mean, great success.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we will ask them, and if they're available somewhere, we'll see if we can get them in here.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, go ahead.
Just want to congratulate staff on a great rolling out of this program, and the numbers speak for themselves on who's using them. And I think anecdotally, the program appears to be a success on the seeing people on them from 5 a.m. until 10, 11 o'clock at night. And, the proportion of the locals that are and workforce that are using them. And I'm very impressed with the rollout and the implementation. So thank you.
I agree, but I feel there's too many non-locals using them. And I'd like to do something about that if we can, make it more expensive. I mean, I think the local buy-in to it's been great. Really way outdid my expectations. And I think I went and tried to get a bike the other day to go to the rec center to give blood. And I ended up walking almost all the way to the rec center because I kept missing bikes as I was getting to things. So that's awesome. But I have seen groups of obvious non-locals touring on them. And I've been told by a couple of bike shops that they think that sucks. So
I had the same experience with
Yeah.
bike shops. How do we, what are our options?
We do have some options to look at pricing. We can escalate it. The one thing that we have to be aware of is when we adjust the pricing, it's going to be across the board for that user group, which is totally fine. So we can look at the increase if that's what we really want to do.
There's nothing we can do by zip code or anything like that to make it.
That's how we've done the memberships. So in order to get
Can we do
a
that
membership.
with pricing?
Yeah, I mean, we could rule out the pay-as-you-go option altogether. I wouldn't recommend it. One, it gives locals an option who don't want to commit to a reoccurring monthly or pay up front for a season membership, a way to test it, or maybe they'll just use it for a couple trips throughout the summer. So that's one reason. There's also, we've seen the first 3 weeks of the program where it was 2/3 locals, 1/3 was a pay-as-you-go, which could include some locals as well. And then in the week since then, it's been about three quarters membership. So even today, the way we've got it structured right now, we're seeing somewhere between 2/3 to 3/4 of local use. So we can explore options. I just would trying to understand what the comfortable level would be with non-local use of the bike share program, knowing that today we're already between 2/3 and 3/4 locals.
that's too high personally.
Okay.
I mean, for me, the perfect number would be 0.
Okay.
This is a last mile thing. This is not a enjoy Breckenridge and ride around on an electric bike. If that's how this was sold, I would have been adamantly against it. So, I mean, I like the fact that there's a bunch of locals that are using these all the time, but the joyriding of tourists just riding around town on it is not in any way okay with me. So I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I'm not.
As we lock this down, have we heard any complaints from members of the workforce that are kind of new to town and all their credit cards and everything have an out of town billing zip code?
I have not heard that feedback yet. No.
I haven't either, but let's be sensitive. Let's keep an ear out for that. And so that we have an ability to qualify as a local in another way with a paycheck.
Yeah, we have that process is how it is right now. So if someone tries to get a membership, they don't have the 80424 billing zip code, then Drop Mobility reaches out to them and says, hey, can you provide some proof of residency or a pay stub, something that shows that you work in Breckenridge. So
Awesome. That's all I wanted to be sure was out there. So that's good.
Within the drop mobility data, can we see if, I mean, I agree with Eric. I'd love it if it was all locals and people not joyriding around, but I think Jeffrey had mentioned someone had complained that they saw one of our bikes on Swan Mountain, that I don't know if that's
Mm.
true or not, but can we tell within the data if they left our
Yes,
geofenced
yeah,
area?
I'm
Has
working.
that happened?
I don't know. I don't know yet, but I do think they can tell just like when someone leaves the service area. So they can tell number of trips. What you don't know is what they did. For example, if they rode north on the rec path, crossed the geofence, got the alert that said, hey, you left the service area, you need to turn around, and then they just turned around and came back. That's someone doing mostly what we wanted them to do, but it would still show someone leaving the service area. But I will try to get that, ask them about that or including it in our reporting.
You know, we know this is a work in progress. It has been, you know, for the most part, phenomenally successful, you know, but I mean, I know Eric and I have just been hearing from some bike shops, but just, you know, we'll leave it up to you to fix it.
Two guys on Liesel's Luge.
We did, yep.
That was outstanding, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Who said that?
We did ask Matt for is, you saw that we had an average length of ride to get average length of ride for just the non-local group. So we can see like, is it a group of 8 people, but they took it from one place to a restaurant, right? And they really truly did that last mile, or are they tooling around? So that, you know, will be helpful. And then the information on folks who are going outside of our jurisdictional areas and, right, are they out and staying out or out and turning around?
I mean, would we ever consider a geofence that just kills the power like it did in Park City?
Yeah, but they talked about that.
They don't like it.
They don't want to do that.
Because then they leave the bikes.
The biggest issue with that is it could be somebody actually doing the right thing in town, and we all have cell issues here, and it could shut the bike off while they're doing the right thing. We don't want to have an experience like that.
So I would just like to say that while I definitely want to work with the bike shops very much, I do think this is a different user group that's using it for 20 minutes or an hour that never would have rented the bike for a half day. And I understand I'm not trying to provide a service for those people who are not using it as a last mile, but I don't think there's any way we can say they didn't use it to, instead of the trolley, like to go from one end of the town to the south, you know, north end to the south end, or to go see the troll and come back. I just think, like, I love the last mile usage, and I don't care as much whether it's a local person or a person from out of town. I'm happy it's getting used. And I personally think it's been 100% successful. I don't see any issues.
I completely agree with you. I think that even if the guest is using it to sightsee and to tool around town, as you say, I'd rather them do that on the bike than in their car. And I think that typically from what I see, it is a group of 4 that are going from one end of town to the other. And it is a heck of a lot better that they're using those bikes than getting in their auto and trying to sightsee from their vehicle.
I disagree with both of them. Will they adjust how many bikes they have in certain locations as time goes on? It seems like it's taken them a while to adjust, you know, up to Wellington, it's usually empty. And then town hall, there's like 25 bikes there. I mean, there were so many bikes the other day, some dude locked 2 of them up to the lamppost. So will they get an idea of how to move stuff around?
Yeah, that's in progress. And we have heard that feedback on wanting more bikes balanced back out to the workforce housing neighborhoods, especially during commuting hours. So we've passed that along. They are currently in the middle of getting staffed up. They had one hire fall through last week that they were thinking was going to be coming on. So so when they get their staffing, that will get back to where it needs to be. That'll improve going forward.
Cool.
I'm similar to Jay and Kelly in that I think the problem to solve for is not necessarily local versus non-local. To me, if it's last mile, right? Like if it's getting them to the troll, awesome. You know, and in fact, I'd love to see folks that are visiting, yeah, more bikes, less cars. But the trick is, I think if they're using that instead of, a part day from a local bike shop. And then in my mind, it'd be amazing if this whole program was run through a local bike shop. I think that'd be a super cool way to keep the money in the community. But I also see if a family of 5 or 6 is going out, maybe the next time they're in town, they're like, those things were cool. I am going to run to the grocery store on that. So I think we'll keep grinding and working and making it better.
Yeah, and any data to help us tell the story of the bike shops would be great, because they, that would be helpful.
Give them Kelly's number.
You can, feel free. I'd be happy.
I think we did talk to some Matt talked to some bike shops and they said their
Yeah.
sales aren't hurting. They're rolling out a lot of bikes.
And that's what I said to the people that talked to me. Well, at the end of the season, come in with some quantifiable data that is different from years past. And so I mean, I still contend with what Eric and I are talking about, but I also think maybe this will kind of alert people and educate them to the joys of electric transportation in all its capacities.
There, you can put that on a bumper sticker, right?
Feedback. Next thing is parking. Any questions on parking? Pretty straightforward. And then
I think we're bringing the annual parking report next meeting, aren't we, in July?
early July. Yep. We're working through the narrative of it right now. Transit and bikes. Any questions on that one?
When are we gonna start piloting bikes and buses?
We have our driver meeting tomorrow, so we could be as early as Thursday.
And I don't know if this is you, but when are we getting the sharrows or whatever it's called on the roads, like Wellington, the stencils? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know the exact date, Jeffrey, but I know that crews right now are putting some
That's on the-
thermal
on the
down right
agenda.
now.
Okay.
So I'd look for it here over the next.
The rain to stop.
Yeah, that's cool. I just wanted to make sure we're.
Shannon, did you ask, as an aside, did you ask James about the water main or whatever that I
Yeah.
thought got covered up?
Shannon Smith checking on it.
Shannon, no.
All right.
Yeah. She said good catch.
There's a hole I ride over every time when I go to work and they repave the road and it's not there anymore. And I'm not sure, but I thought it was one of our the small water things. So,
The curb stop.
yeah. the curb
Water,
stop.
yeah.
Got transit.
Sustainability.
We got one more thing with transit. We are making an adjustment, as you heard from council meeting a few meetings ago. We had public comment around the northbound Denison bus stop. We as a group have kind of decided that we are going to close that bus stop. While the claims weren't necessarily able to be substantiated, or there's no real backup, we don't have police reports or calls for service in that area related to the concerns. We're lucky that we have a stop directly across the street. The bus comes back 2 minutes later. And really it serves the same purpose. So we're comfortable with testing out the idea of closing the stop for the foreseeable future, with kind of the asterisk that we're gonna hold the right to actually bring it back at any time whenever we need to, based on volume or requests from other people. So the bus will remain on its same route. It just signs are already up. It'll become effective Thursday morning, and we'll just have the riders walk across the street. There's ADA access on both sides, so it's not a big issue in any way. So
That worked out.
Thank you for that.
Cool. Any questions?
Just, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I had James come up on this. I know that I believe Todd and Dick went to look at the kind of F&B delivery system they have going on in town of Vale. It's pretty slick. James had an opportunity to look at that also, right? At a different time?
Yeah, correct. Both Matt and I and Teddy as well had an opportunity to look at, Vail and the delivery system program that they have going over there. And for those that don't know, I mean, the unique thing about an opportunity they had is they had these underground docking locations for the trucks to receive the pallets of food and beverage in this case. After looking at it, there's a lot of things that have already kind of gotten the internal discussions going. And I think without a doubt, there's some things that we could apply here in Breckenridge, and kind of timing being everything with the work on the Riverwalk path and also Riverwalk Center, and just the interest in reducing the delivery vehicles and downtown. I think there's some real opportunity. And so just wanted to provide an update from Public Works perspective. We would really like the opportunity to kind of bring back something and bring forward some ideas for how we can kind of put a similar program on the ground here in Breckenridge.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. It was really cool, and really efficient.
And it's
And
paid for by the,
What's that?
it's paid for by the companies, right? Part of 60% of their cost recovery comes from
The
vendors.
companies and then the businesses to a lesser extent.
Yeah.
And
In the
they
town.
squawked it in the town. They squawked it first, and then after a few months and they got some of the bugs worked out, they're like, don't you ever take this away.
So how does it work?
You know,
How does it work?
the vendors roll in, the Shamrock, Cisco, all of those guys, Alsco Linen, you name it. They roll into a two-way dock or a common dock. They unload onto pallets for each account. And then the logistics company has these electric carts that'll hold a pallet or two. And they load the pallets on those electric carts, and they take them to the restaurants. And they've got relationships already with the restaurateurs. It's not like our vendors who have different drivers every week. And the vendors, according to these guys, are like fight over this route because it's the easiest route in the world, in Vail. So the vendors love it. The restaurateurs, according to these guys, love it. Now, I can call some references. But these guys know where the product goes because they do it it's the same people.
Isn't there GPS or something so they know when it's arriving or something like that?
I didn't hear that, but maybe.
The trucks themselves have GPS on them, so when they're dispatched out, the company knows where the truck is
Oh, cool.
on the roadway. So if there is a hold up on Vail Pass or someplace, the truck, they dispatch that out. And so 106 West, the contractor, also has a screen view of that too. So they know when those trucks are going to arrive.
They had a 6-truck dock, and this was Tiva Games. So it's super busy weekend in Vail. We got in there, Matt, like 6:30?
Yep.
Downstairs, when we walked through the village at 6:30, there's nobody anywhere. We were down there till 8:39.
Yep.
When we left, basically all the food and beverage in the village of Vail was delivered.
Done.
It was in the restaurants. And we came out, it was popping, it was packed.
And we saw
Or they take it inside?
Take it inside.
get in and
What?
deliver it here.
Where might we feasibly do something like that? Where would,
Well, basically what I hope we can do from this discussion is to encourage, empower, create, generate some staff time for the staff to look at in a little more depth. I spoke James about this afternoon. I told him if we have a study group, I would love to be a part of it. I'm sure Todd, one or both of us. And
I think we'd like to vet a few areas that you want to keep them, you don't want to keep them out of the core if you can, right? That's the beauty of it.
it's not apples to apples, because you got to remember the Vail Village is all heated. So, they don't have the snow issues that we do, snow and ice. I'm sure there's some, but not to the extent we do. So it's not gonna be apples to apples, but I think there's a lot to be learned, and I think there's potential synergies. So, I think it's something that could really help us, and we just need to figure out what's the best way for it to work in our town.
what's your address, Kelly? Where
The trucks?
we have it there, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Dick, is that an independent company that runs that logistics portion?
And they are local, they've been in Vail for a while, so they're local Vail. One of them was a lawyer, right? Was your classmate at CC. And I think these guys played hockey together at CC, and one of them had been a lawyer for 10 years. I think went to law school with Reed. And the other one played professional hockey for a while over in Europe, and they came back together and they got this idea. They started by delivering mail all over the Vail Valley. So they got chops in the valley. They understand mountain resort communities.
Expand.
Yeah.
They're actually here.
Right, was there looking at it when we were there?
They're here doing courier service in Breckenridge, so.
They deliver coffee and
Yep.
a couple other things, I think.
Really?
These are smart guys. I mean, the guy left his law practice to take this over one of the
Could
principals.
the carts go, like feasibly, would it be like an airport road thing? Or would it have to be, kind of to the south of the Justice Center?
I don't know yet. I mean, we got to figure that out. Right
How far is
now,
it in Vail? How far is it in Vail that they drive?
oh. Well, they're basically from one edge of the village to the far edge of the village. So it's some distance.
Yeah, it is.
And right now, they're right in the process of taking in UPS and FedEx. And they're doing the background work around trash and material management recycling. That's a little trickier because of the state ordinance around single hauler, and so they're in the process of navigating that, but they're determined to, I mean, their council has given them, the charge to figure it out. We want you guys to do trash and materials as well.
Like with the restaurant delivery, who pays? Is it the restaurants or the town?
The vendors or purveyors
Oh, shit.
pay the lion's share. And I think they had it set up so the restaurateurs paid a small fee. But I think the town council said, no, they wanted to pick that up. They didn't want to charge the restaurateurs and the restaurant, one of the council members, everything's been unanimous except for one vote on council. The one negative vote was a guy who was concerned, restaurateurs, that the vendors, the purveyors would pass on the additional expense to the individual accounts. And that has not proven to be true. The restaurateurs are, according to these guys, would be willing to pay a fee, because I don't know about you, but I would certainly, if I knew my deliveries were going to be there by 8 o'clock every morning and put where they're supposed to be, and food safety taken into account. All of those things we're not seeing right now.
The trucks pay like a docking fee based on the amount of volume they're doing. And then the cool thing is I think everybody ends up happier. The truck companies can keep truck drivers. It's warm in this place where they're pulling in the food. And then the relationship between the logistics company and the restaurants is phenomenal. And those guys run a real good team and take care of their peeps. And then every restaurant owner's stoked, and yeah,
I
it's
asked them
good.
what they were paying their guys, and they pay them fairly with benefits, the logistics company.
So if everybody's supportive, we'll start
Yeah.
looking at some stuff. Doesn't hurt to explore it.
No, it does not.
Okay,
Cool.
thanks.
Sustainability.
That was, those guys were awesome.
Yeah.
Mayor and council, here to answer any questions about the memo. I did just want to highlight one particular change to the Energy Smart residential program. And that is that we have increased the rebate costs for households earning less than 160% AMI in order to complete energy projects. And those energy projects are really specified towards electrification and fuel switching, which is in line with the requests of council to help incentivize electrification. So I just want to point that out. That change went into effect this year, and then we'll be proposing it in the budget again next year for 2024.
Jesse, and that's up to $4,000. Is that right this year?
Correct.
I would venture to say there's very little that you can do with electrification on an existing house for 4,000. What is the future years? What would be your ask? What would that look like?
So right now that number is very much a moving target, because coming full circle back to the contractors and what they're knowledgeable about and what they're bidding, we're seeing that the electrification costs are really high. And so it's not just the first cost of the projects, it's all the labor and all of that. So we'll have a better idea as we, first of all, start seeing more bids come on these projects, and as we do more contractor training. hopefully those costs will come down. But there are a lot of like opportunities, not just for totally switching from natural gas over to electrification, but rather just appliance switching. So you can swap out your gas burning stove for an induction stove for up to $1,500 in the rebate. So there's different tiers of projects that you can do, but yeah, the big total house conversion is a lot more than 4,000. And really, I can't put my finger on what that is because the numbers are all inflated in different ways.
Thank you.
As we're working on the plastic pollution info, can we do some info about compostable serviceware?
Yep.
I've had multiple conversations in the last couple of weeks about the fact that they are not compostable up here, and a lot of people don't seem to know that. So if we can,
Yep.
I don't know what I don't know what we should be telling people to do with that stuff. So.
I know that Eco Products has reached out to myself and Hayden just about what of their products will be eligible moving forward. So some of it'll come from the producer as well, which is
Great.
good news. Happy to answer any other questions.
I'm sorry, I know that we're trying to roll on, but we had spoken a couple of months ago about once pay-as-you-throw starts getting closer, that we would start messaging of how to recycle, and does the label have to be off the container? What numbers are acceptable? Does that have to be washed out? Are you expecting that to occur at some point?
Yes.
No. That is the correct answer.
For the reminder.
We're not doing that. Sorry, Jay.
Lastly, on the universal recycling portion, you said that you've had some conversations with some properties so far. Have there been any lessons learned or vulnerabilities discovered on what our ordinance says versus what is possible? You know, I think me and you spoke about a property like Valley Brook where, you know, we're gonna either be penalizing homeowners for going with the smaller one, or we're gonna have 3 different trash companies running through that little circle. Have you seen other things that we're learning from?
Certainly on the universal recycling side, it's a case by case basis, but things that we're running into are related to requirements around enclosures. You know, trash has to be enclosed. Recycling isn't trash. Is that a gray area? Can it be outside? What are the aesthetics related to that? And then the other one is around just parking requirements or perceived parking need on the property. So we're working through those. I kind of have a running list that we're going to circle back with ComDev on, just to say, hey, is there a, you know, potential code change to help incentivize this or not? But it's every single property is so different that it is very helpful to do those site visits and have that conversation one-on-one. So that's the overarching things that we're seeing.
Well, thank you for
Yeah.
going out there and
Yeah.
having the boots on the ground for it.
Related to recycling, right, though, the Oops tag campaign is well underway. So neighborhoods are getting tagged with Oops tags. Yeah, oops, you have glass in your single stream. That's not good.
Star today.
You did not.
I did.
They are gold starring people. So, so that program is actually really, really effective, and it's at the point of disposal. So it'll help inform people like, oh, no clamshells, here's why. And that can will be tagged at the curbside. So that is happening right now.
Jeffrey's showing me the picture of his gold star.
Oh.
'Cause I don't believe him.
Yeah, yeah.
What's with this? My whole neighborhood got tagged, but they told me that they were tagging gold
Yeah,
stars too.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And he had a smiling face.
I'm pretty sure you stole that off your neighbor.
I do. Actually, I took that this time.
All right, housing and childcare update.
We
Ooh,
just
my
know
neighbor's got
Ellen
it. I'm
did
gonna
it.
take that. Nice job.
Yeah.
Recycler.
And that's, and I got a tenant in the bond. I have to re-educate him. Right.
Hello, good afternoon. We did have some minutes in your packet. We also had a memo in your packet about the revised sort of Stables lottery process. So we are here to answer any questions you might have about either of those or any of the projects. Before we get into that, I did want to make sure everybody knows about the Justice Center event that has been scheduled for the 28th at 3 PM. We're hoping maybe it could change to 4 PM. But that is when the county decided to have an initial event to see the set and stitch, and it's coming up soon. So I want to get that on everybody's.
So they're in charge now?
Currently,
They're saying they weren't, because of the safety issue of the boxes arriving and the stitching and wanting to cut the ribbons, they had very limited timeframes. I informed them that several of us are coming back from CML that day, so it'll be tight, but if 4 o'clock would be better than 3 o'clock if we were doing it to give us, we'll see.
other than that,
They let
here
them know I was disappointed.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did.
many times to try to set up a date that worked for everybody and just didn't happen. It actually conflicts with the lottery date, which is also that day at 2 o'clock. So.
Thank you very much for finding that new simplified version of the first round of the lottery.
Well, we've never done a lottery ourselves, so we're sort of
Well, you're
figuring
doing
it.
it right from the very get-go.
We have the calendar of the events for the stables. It's in your packet, just to see the next steps and the deadlines, and yeah, we're here to answer any questions you might have.
So the applications are open for the lottery. How has been the response so far?
We have 47 as of right now.
It's been about what,
Applications.
72 hours or something?
Yeah, it opened Thursday at 10 a.m.
13 units.
Yep.
Cool. Nice work.
Not bad odds. We'll get more.
Significant, I think, outreach goes out like Thursday or Friday with, ads on radio, Spanish radio, Summit Daily, social. So we'll get a bump then too.
Radio's running now. Summit Daily will be the end of this week.
Questions?
If you haven't driven by, drive by. A lot of dirt moving around out there.
Checking it out.
They're getting after.
Todd?
Just nice work getting dirt moved and getting a lottery going, and you guys have been crushing it. So I appreciate the hard work.
Yeah, out there with a shovel, moving dirt herself.
The golden one.
Gold shovel.
That
The big
Any
scissors.
questions on the stuff in the packet?
One question, I think the Summit Foundation proposal is really interesting and we'll see how that progresses. But one thing with just the initial ideas, I think master leases should be a main area of ideas to explore.
That's the ongoing rental sort of
Mhm.
support. Yeah.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee reports, any questions on Summit Stage? Yep. Events Committee. Questions? John Doerr.
John Doerr.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, and
Came down here.
fellow council members.
He's in the rec department.
That's right.
It's calm down. They're the ones that slow a foot.
Oh, in front of you, any questions, though, there's one thing I wanted to highlight, as it pertains to the Quench Buggy solos that we've talked about. They are ordered. They will not be branded until we have, worked with Launch Media or Cultivate to really come up with a, fantastic water campaign. Breckenridge water tastes better for next summer, but we will get them in hand now, and you guys will be able to review that before those go to print for next summer.
Awesome.
I just wanted to say thank you to BTO and events, Town of Breck. I've heard a lot of good feedback about the Pride event last weekend.
Yeah,
And
I did too.
I just think it was really cool that you guys pulled that off. It was a lot of work and a good community event.
Yeah, Matt Caruso and Majay, Bailey from the BTO definitely deserve to be commended for that event, and they did a fantastic job.
And also good work on rescheduling that mountain bike race during the deluge.
Yeah, worked out perfect the
It did.
next
Next day
evening,
was- was
great
okay.
conditions. So, yeah. Any other questions?
I have a question, John. I don't know if you know this, or maybe this is a Brooke question, but just outreach for the town party. I think The town has done a great job at recruiting nonprofits and partner organizations to push out that volunteer information. In our communications, are we letting the community know, like, this is really like, there's opportunities to learn about volunteer opportunities?
Yeah, so we have something going out in the Summit Daily tomorrow, and then we also have it going out on our socials. It'll also be in this email that goes out tomorrow. But because it's more of a local event, we didn't want to do too much outreach beforehand.
Makes sense.
Anything else? It might be overcast, but it'll be dry.
Oh, all right. I'm writing that down, John Doerr. You're on the hook now, man.
Rain all summer, so it's in the evening times. So, yeah.
Great,
All right, thank you.
Town attorney update.
So I just have one thing. You were sent an invite to your town official emails, which I've heard some of you are having trouble with, but there's a dinner June 26th, Monday at CML, and I have some of you. I didn't hear from Jay, Eric, and Dick. Do you think you want to? Okay. Do you want me to RSVP for you then?
Where is it?
You know, they haven't finalized the details, but I have been told that maybe it's at Union Station.
Oh,
They're like busing people, I
Peeps.
think.
I'm in then.
Okay, and Jay,
And I'm in.
Monday, the 26th. Okay,
Station, not doing something else down there.
I'm gonna RSVP for you too as well.
Cause I have to watch Dick and Eric.
No, Eric, that's what you and I.
We have to be campaigning for Carol.
Mhm.
Right. We're going down.
Definitely.
She's burned some bridges.
Any any questions?
Having you in front.
Nope. All right. Thank you. Grants update.
Michelle
No
Eddy.
changes from the last update.
Excellent. Thank you. We're gonna take a quick 5-minute break and then we're gonna go into the BGV proposed development discussion. So quick 5 and that's not too bad, huh? The way you guys gabble. We are back in session and we begin with the BGV proposed development discussion. Who's going to start off? Mark? Okay.
Good afternoon. So first off, what I would like to say is that earlier today, Breckenridge Grand Vacations withdrew their site-specific development permit 2022-0208. That was a permit for building on the North Gondola lot and the North and South Goldbrush lots, consistent with a master plan that was approved a year and a half or so ago. So that permit now being withdrawn, we are open to have a discussion about another potential alternative development scenario involving those properties as well as some others that will be discussed here in a few minutes. So what we're going to start out with is Mike Dudick is here from Breck Grand Vacations, and he's going to give an overview of the proposal in a PowerPoint. And you guys will have an opportunity to ask Mike any questions you have. Then what we'd like to do is move into the second part where staff takes you through, we'll be taking a look at a table that looks at the density and, compares that to previous approvals and what's zoned today. And then we will take you through a discussion starting with the different areas that are associated with this proposal. There's 6 different geographic locations that are associated with this. And we'll be talking about some of the issues, some things that maybe staff has identified, but we want to, and that's where we'll be looking for council input in that. So we'll talk more about that when we get there. So that sounds like a good game plan. We'll
Mark, would you let them know that what they have handed out in the manila envelope or as a map, if that just shows the locations of the proposals that Mike will obviously be talking about if you want to see where any of those are located?
Map, and we'll put that up later, should correspond with the same numbers that Mike will be showing in his presentation. So we had one map that shows all 6 of those areas, and then they're kind of in 2 geographic areas, one more up towards the ski hill, one downtown here. And then we have blow ups to those as well. So you can see all the properties that we're talking about.
And I know we like to minimize putting things on paper, but in some cases, like this chart that was developed by ComDev is just very difficult to read on the iPads. And so that's why we want to give you a hard copy that when Mike's done. And I would suggest that you guys hold on to these things in this folder. So each time we come back together to have a discussion, you have that material with you.
Yeah, don't lose it. No, I'm gonna keep it in my bathroom. Next to the other classified documents.
I made it to Jeffrey's bathroom. So.
Righty.
Thanks for having me today. I'm Mike Dudick. I am CEO of Breckenridge Grand Vacations and co-owner of the company. I wanted to come to council today and in public discuss something that's been socialized a decent amount in the community, which is a consolidation of density that exists on 2 sites and merging that into one with a goal of having less of a multifamily footprint in Breckenridge, delivering more workforce housing, lessening congestion in the core of the community, lots of benefits. I think that as we get through this, I hope you can see the collective vision that we think we're creating a win-win-win. Our goal is to work collaboratively with the town and BGV and Vail Resorts to establish, I think, an unprecedented development and an unprecedented level of cooperation to deliver something that is fitting for Breckenridge. And so with that, let me start. Today, this is an overhead shot of Breck, and it's kind of detailed. It's that white line is the gondola starting on the right in town and terminating at the base of Peak 8. Circle 1 represents the gondola lot sites, which is one of 2 multifamily sites or large multifamily sites that remain in Breckenridge. The second site is at the base of the ski resort on the administration site. I will probably bounce back and forth between saying admin site or East Peak 8. They're the same thing. Admin for the administration building or East Peak 8 is the easternmost site of all of Peak 7 and Peak 8. I would also say that I did a dry run of this with probably 100 different employees today out at the CMC. And I talked for the first half hour and then I reminded everybody it was okay to ask questions. I think it's simple and then it's also complicated. And so as we go through it and you'll see, like Mark said, there's kind of 6 different parcels or 6 different silos, if you will. And as we go through this, please feel free to stop me at any point and ask questions, or we can circle back to them at the end. But it's not going to disrupt me at all. If you ask questions, we have it be a more conversational situation rather than loading them all up for the end. I'm totally fine with stopping and starting and answering the questions as we go through them. So in Breck today, at the basically the top and the bottom of the gondola, there's 2 remaining multifamily sites. Well, there you go. 2 remaining multifamily sites, and we own or control. There's a lease on one of them. We own or control all the gondola sites. There's 3 sites on the gondola that we would refer to as gondola, which is North Gondola, which is where the gondola sits today, and 690 parking spaces. And then across the street are North and South Gold Rush that are bisected by French Street. North Gold Rush is kind of a wedge that runs along a pretty steep hillside. If you've ever paid attention to that as you're driving down, South Gold Rush is on the south side of French Street, kind of adjoins the Woods neighborhood and runs kind of underneath the gondola. And Leste, who's an investment banker from Florida, they own the administration site. If I need to go into the history on this, I'll just do this really quick. Lionheart borrowed money from Leste to buy this parcel of land from Vail Resorts. Lionheart did not fulfill their obligations, and Leste took the property back from Lionheart. There's 3 years right there, literally. And so Leste owns and controls the administration site today. So what's the big idea here? The big idea is to take 2 large multifamily sites at the base of Peak 8 and the gondola and eliminate that in favor of one larger multifamily site, which is the base of Peak 8, and some single family residences. We'll keep some parts of our master plan, but the way this thing really works is that we are eliminating 2 large multifamily sites in favor of 1, but the trade-off is allocation of, or the permissibility to have single family lots at the base of the mountain as well on some land that Vail Resorts owns.
How many FSCs would you be eliminating in the gondola lot?
There's 143 SFEs on the gondola lot. I'll get to that. There's 145.8 up at the base of the admin site. And so we would keep a few SFEs down in town for workforce housing and some townhomes on the South Gold Rush lot, and the balance would migrate up to the base of the mountain.
So pretty much most of the density on the
Gondola.
gondola lot, not across the street to Gold Rush, but on the gondola lot itself would be gone.
It would go up to the base of Peak 8. I will say that when this idea started to, germinate from, the acorn into the oak kind of deal, that it was in the fall of last year before there was the code change, which dramatically, as you know, it dramatically changed the density value at the base of the mountain. When we started doing this, it was my intention to be able to walk in here at some point and say we would sunset around 80 units of density. The code change made that not possible, so that what we need to use basically that 80 units we would have sunset to make whole the building at the base of the mountain, right? And so you get the same size, or actually a smaller size building at the base of the mountain with the addition of the additional density. So the additional density is not making that building bigger. We're actually going to design it to make it smaller, but we need to add density to it so it becomes code compliant with all of the density changes that were enacted in January of this year. Yeah.
Less units or just a smaller building?
It's a smaller building, and you'll see, because I reference Tetris in this, where we're trying to figure out the pieces. It's still fluid, Dick, and I don't want to say things that I don't want to be in the dried cement space this afternoon. Conceptually, I want to say something like we'll have 35 hotel rooms. Does that mean that's forever? Could it change to 38 or 32? I want to be able to make sure that I'm on the record saying I'm talking in generalities. I'm trying to give you specific information, but I don't want to, my feet are not in dried cement on this. I mean, I think that the idea here is we work collaboratively to get to numbers that everybody's happy with. So
kind of back to my question, conceptually,
The
same
building
number of units or more number of units? I hear you say smaller building, but to me, units is important.
it's less keys. So yes, I mean, definitely less units. There, by way of example, there were in the building that was originally approved at the base of Peak 8, there were 143 hotels. Is that right? 143 hotel rooms in that, and we're proposing 35. And so it's a reduction of hotel keys by whatever that is, 108 less hotel keys. That turns into condos, but it's less hotel rooms, it's less beds all in to get rid of hotel rooms in favor of condos. So the answer, I think, is yes. And I'm not trying to be evasive. I don't have that level of math committed to memory.
Okay, yeah.
The building is getting smaller. And I think the key count is smaller. Our commitment is to make this smaller.
Okay.
So eliminate combine the two multifamily sites into one, and then the incentive for BGV is the single family sites that you'll see as I go further through the presentation. So why am I sitting here proposing this? The gondola entitlement process was arduous, to say the least. I think you were on planning at the time, and many of you were still on council. It was arduous. And so why would we walk away from this? Well, I think that I hope I've earned the reputation in this community of being a community first person. And through our philanthropy, through our commitments to our employees, to childcare, and endless amount of things that we do, I think we put community first. And while it was arduous, I'm not tone deaf to the idea that I heard a lot of people not happy with the idea of large buildings going in the core of town. And so as I think acting in a community first fashion, if I can figure this out creatively, I'm going to try to. I was asked to, or people suggested, why don't you take a look at this? And I did. And I think that it's one of the things that our development team is really good at, is being creative to try and figure out solutions that aren't, not everyone's a fan of development, but to try and make it the best we possibly can, given the realities of what it is. And the other thing is that I want to say this, and I think that for too long, and myself being one of the people, the argument has been, it's going to be developed anyway, so pick us because we're the lesser of all known evils. And I don't know that really is a great position. I mean, I think it's true, but I don't know that it's really something that resonates, right? I mean,
that's how I ran on council.
But what I'm here to say today is that let's collaboratively, as a group between BGV and the town of Breckenridge and Vail Resorts and their participation, work together to determine what is the final outcome for these two parcels in Breckenridge. Absent a collaborative effort, I think, between the town, us, and Vail, what's left is the density in the playbook in the form of the code that you give developers. And so if this doesn't happen, there is 145.8 SFEs at the base of the mountain. There are new rules for that, but there will be something built there, right? There are 143 SFEs in town in the gondola lots. We are we withdrew the application. We were 3 planning meetings out of 4 deep into that. I think we were getting really towards the finish line on that. But I sit here today to say genuinely that we have an opportunity to collaboratively define how these developments will work, and not for them just to be a developer buys a parcel with density and goes and gets the code and plays by the code and goes and builds whatever they can go build on that. That's exactly not what we're doing here. We're saying, let's work together to figure out how we can have less building, less congestion, privately funded workforce housing, things like that. So a win-win-win strategy, which would be, like I just said, community first, big buildings at the base of the ski mountain, which I think that, since we started building at the base of Peak 7, whatever that was in 2007, and before that at Grand Timber Lodge, that's a resonating theme in our community, is to keep the big buildings at the base of the mountain. This does that because it gets rid of 6 buildings on the north gondola lot. 6 large 4-story buildings go away, and that density gets those 80 SFEs that would have contributed to building 4 large buildings go and they turn into hallways and lobbies up at the base of the mountain to accommodate the deficiency that that building would have today under the new code. Lessen congestion in the community. We're taking multifamily out of the core of town. And we could spend a lot of time discussing what the vehicular impacts may or may not be with people that are primarily residential for 4, 5, or 7 night stays. But at the end of the day, we're taking those residential cars out of the core and we're parking them at the base of the mountain where our users overwhelmingly use public transportation, whether it's the shuttle system that's provided by the Mountain Master Association, or it's the gondola, or whatever other methods they have, whether, well, bicycles, or I don't know if their bikes are up there or not, or their feet. But our owners overwhelmingly park their car and leave their car. And so we, not only are we getting those vehicles out of the core, we're parking them in a place where they are not circling our community and circling in particular the downtown core and adding to that, congestive failure that we all experience particularly on Saturday and Sunday afternoons during ski season. And finally, this proposal brings forward publicly funded workforce housing. I'm sorry, privately, big difference there. Privately funded, privately funded workforce housing. And I think that it's really important to understand we've got a term sheet with Vail Resorts right now, and it's critical to them in the collaborative sale of additional land to us that portions of the proceeds from the development subsidize more workforce housing. That's an essential element to this. And I think one of the reasons why, and throughout our country and throughout our state and our community, that you don't see more workforce housing is because it loses money. You just can't recover your cost. The workforce housing that we would put forward here is going to lose as a development play, will lose between 10 and $15 million on day one. It's CO. That's why it never gets built, is because you've got this kind of gap. And so how do you overcome that gap? Well, traditionally you overcome it by using public funds to augment, whether it's money loaned by the town or it's LIHTC funding or it's whatever the different funding sources are, but public monies to go in and augment this. What we're saying is that we can commit with this plan to use private revenues to build the workforce housing. And unlike, I think, any other thing that I'm familiar with in the development space, the community candy comes first, which means that we build the workforce housing first. It's the first thing that gets built. It's a requirement of the deal with Vail Resorts because it's so important to them that we deliver additional workforce housing, that before anything else happens, if we completely failed and all we did was deliver workforce housing, that's a win for the ski resort. That's a win for me personally. Obviously, it'd be a loss if we didn't finish it out, but the candy for the community comes first. Deliver workforce housing in a privately funded fashion in a community that's desperately starved, I think, for more workforce housing.
Mike, on the housing,
Yeah.
and I'm sure we'll get into it later when the details come out, but are you planning to do more than what's required by the code?
That's a business decision for us. So what I'm planning to do is build using the SFEs that we own to build the housing that we're required to build per code, both on site and off site. There's a question for this body is, will you be willing to commit additional density so that we can do the bricks and sticks? So we can go vertical with more build pursuant to the town providing the density to make that a reality.
But you mentioned Vail Resorts. Have you discussed a partnership with them?
I want to say partnership in the let's have lunch kind of context, not a financial partnership. The partnership is that we have a letter of intent with them, a term sheet that spells out these are things that must happen. So we'll have a contractual obligation to do things like deliver additional density. Will they be a financial partner of ours? No. Are they providing land, which is a resource or an asset to deliver the funds that can provide the subsidy? Yes. And so they're a intellectual partner, a conceptual partner, but not a financial partner.
So it's because of the land. lease.
Spirit partner.
Like lunch partner.
Mike, I heard you say 3 or 4 or 5 times, privately funded workforce housing, privately
Yep.
funded workforce housing. So if you were to find federal money or other public money somewhere else, I'm assuming that it'll still be privately, so that federal money could be shared with additional workforce housing as opposed, I mean, you're committed, obviously, you just said it a bunch of times, to privately funded workforce housing regardless of whether you find other public money to supplement.
I'm committed to the idea that the people that create the burden for more workers in this community should pay for that. And that includes me, and that includes that includes BGV, and that includes the ski resort, and that includes, others that generate employees. And so if there's an opportunity to get additional funds, of course, we would take that. If there's an opportunity to get additional funds that come with handcuffs that make it an unworkable deal, then I don't know that I'm interested in that.
I mean, are you working on federal funds now, like transportation oriented public housing? I know that money's out there.
I've actually had a one-on-one with the governor about that and worked through that, but I've not. We're in our first meeting of public disclosure on this. And so I want to, this is a take your temperature, and if, to get some direction from you guys, and that's one of the questions, right? Or that's one of the direction points that we'll seek to get. And so,
because I'm excited about the partnership with your privately funded housing and what we can do to help. But if your private funding turns into public funding, I'll be disappointed.
I have no intention of that happening. I mean, zero.
Great.
If we can't pull it off, if we can't pull that off using nothing but the funds generated from this project, then I'll full stop at that point. I mean, this is conceived entirely on reallocating profits that other developers would not do to deficit fund something that loses money. It just doesn't, look around, it doesn't happen. Other developers don't go build big buildings and then go build thousands of square feet of workforce housing and go with it because it loses money, and they'd rather keep that money for themselves. And so genuinely here today to say that I think there's an opportunity when we work collaboratively to take resources from this unprecedented idea to allocate that to workforce housing and let the people that are buying super expensive lots and building super expensive homes contribute to the burden they put on this community. That's what this is about. When I say private, that's what I mean, is that the people that are going to buy these lots and build their 4th home it's not going to be a surcharge on top of the lot. It's not the lot's $100 and there's 25 more for the workforce housing surcharge. That's not it. It's the lot's $100.
Yeah.
And then we allocate from there.
Oh, it's our partnership makes you money, and it's partnership. Yeah. So, great. Awesome.
So the 3 legs, pardon?
I just said, I bet the lot's not $100.
100 something.
That was right away.
There's more zeros. Yeah, for sure. 3 legs to stool, right? Are BGV and Vail Resorts and the town. And I genuinely mean this. This doesn't go anywhere without all 3 entities aligned and moving in the same direction with the same goal. And the goal here, again, is to reduce the number of buildings that we built, the multifamily buildings that we build, decrease the human intensity. Mark's going to tell you accurately that when we have 20 or so lots that have 7,500 square foot houses on them, that's going to add up to a lot of square footage. But the number of people and the number of nights they're spending in those houses is going to be way down here. And if we reverse that same density and say we're going to build hotels, less square footage, but the people count's going to go way up. So you guys get to make a decision, ladies and gentlemen, of do you want more square footage and less people, or more square footage and less people, less square footage and more people. That's the trade-off between land versus condominiums or hotel rooms. There you go. That's kind of tells you what you need to know there. Gondola lots, to Jeffrey's first question, 143 SFEs. For the audience and those listening online, SFE is a single family equivalent. And a single family equivalent in Breckenridge has a multitude of different ranges of square footages that can be applied to the build. One SFE commercially is 1,000 square feet. So if you wanted to open a 5,000 square foot restaurant, you need 5 SFEs to go build that. A condominium gets 1,200 square feet. A hotel room, for some reason I don't understand, gets 1,380 square feet for the same SFE. Which, to your question earlier, a condo, the way we do it at 1,200 square feet is 2 keys. 1,380 for a hotel SFE is going to be 3 or maybe even 4 keys at 300 square foot per room. And so the hotel density is much more intense than the condominium density, because hotel rooms are by definition smaller, don't have kitchens, don't have living rooms. They're just beds and bathrooms and more people. A townhome is 1,600 SFE or 1,600 square feet for an SFE. And then a single family home is however big you build your house. And so you've got 1,000 square feet up to 10,000 square feet in terms of value of what an SFE could be. The admin site, oh, there I use both, East Peak 8 admin sites, 145.8. That's a collection of residential density, service, and commercial. So the commercial would be for a restaurant. They don't intend to put a ski shop up there, but a restaurant. And then service is for the administrative functions that are there today. And that's to be determined by the ski resort. That, you know, they've got, I don't want to speak for them. There's some functions that occur in that building that are not likely to continue up there. And I don't know what, you know, like for BGV's accounting office is not at the base of the mountain, it's in town. BGV's IT office is not at the base of the mountain, it's in town, right? It's in a satellite location. So I don't know if that's how they would do it, but there's a certain amount of service square footage that they're allocated in the master plan, and they would use what they wanted to use of that. They would prescribe that to us, just like they've done at Peak 8. We've got their ski shop, we've got children's ski school and lift tickets in our third building at GC8. That was part of the contractual agreement between us and Vail when we purchased that land from them. So a total of 288.8. I'll say it, there's another slide in here, I'll say it again. I get and fully committed, that's the number. It's not going more than that. It's only greater than that to the extent that town council wants to put more density in a site for workforce housing. What we would build privately is restricted by that 288.8, not 1/10 of 1% of an SFE greater than that. So the big idea is to aggregate all the density and redeploy. And so we would take the 143 and the 145 from the two sites, combine those, total density of 288.8, and then we'd start playing Tetris in terms of where we want this density to go. I've got something that's not, you know, there's some specificity to this, but there's still needs to be some latitude as the plans take greater shape. So our strategy in picture, again, this is the overhead shot of town with the gondola starting at the base on my right and going up to the top. Like Mark said, and I confirmed, there's 6 different parcels that we're talking about. And I think that us and the staff are using the same numbering sequence, so everybody can talk about it. I think it'll be helpful for you guys to process it as each parcel, because each parcel has its own little nuances to it as well. And you'll see in the I'm sorry, I printed it on paper, packet that I gave to you. There's 6 different parcels. So parcel 1.
Sorry.
We talked about.
I was gonna ask for a bigger photo, but it was in here. Sorry. So
Parcel 1 is the north gondola lot. That's where the gondola starts and finishes, and then 690 cars, which shrinks during the winter for snow stack as well. But when it's dry like this, it's 690. Parcel 2 is the wedge on north Gold Rush. That's that purple wedge that's covered in part by that green up there. That's parcel number 2. Parcel 3, oops, come on, is townhomes on South Gold Rush. You'll note in the upper left-hand corner of that 3, you can see some gray. That's surface parking for 110 cars. That would migrate across the street in favor of townhomes that we built there. They're actually duplex buildings, so 2 units on either side, and we would propose, our master plan would, we think, allow us to build 8 duplex buildings, 16 total units on that side of the street. Those would, and I'll say this now, but it comes up later. They're not in the short-term rental zone, nor would we request to have any variance to that whatsoever. Parcel 4 is the admin site at the base of the mountain, which is largely a square, except for that little part that jets, that panhandle at the bottom. It kind of runs up adjacent to the 2 magic carpets that are there. There's a stand of trees. Looking to see who's got, you might be familiar with that with your young ladies going up there where the magic carpets are in those trees. But so there's just a run of trees that go just up the side of that hill. This was the parcel of land that was entitled by Lionheart back in 2019. That shape right there. Parcel 5 is new, which comes at the end of 4 O'Clock Run Road, which terminates at a gate there. You can kind of see that it looks like a cul-de-sac there. On either side of that road, on what would be the north and south side, there's 2 stands of trees that are each about a half an acre. That's owned by the ski resort, and they would sell us that land in this, spiritual partnership so that we could monetize that and then and try and use some of that money to contribute to the subsidization of other parts of this proposal in town. And then the last chunk is parcel 6, which is just to the west of the Breckenridge Ski Resort Maintenance Facility. And it has all of that frontage along Trigby's Run, kind of facing towards the west. In Breckenridge today, there's 2 homes that are on the snow where you can ski into your hot tub right directly from a ski run. This ultimately provides 6 more lots that are on the snow. And there's where I think you can start to see where this starts to work for us as a developer to say that we can make the money that we need to vacate down in town and to provide the subsidization required to do some of the things that I think are essential for the community to make this work. So we would buy that parcel of land from the ski resort as well. Those 2 parcels were not included in the original Peak 7 and Peak 8 master plan for reasons I don't know why. You might know more than me about that, but okay.
Since you only talked about the density on Gondola and the EPA admin sites.
Yep.
All the rest of these sites don't have any density.
That's right. And so when I say Tetris, we would be moving density from site 1 up to 4, 5, and 6.
Which could be why they aren't on the master plan. They
Right.
didn't have density.
They don't have.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when that was written in like 2001 or
Yeah. It's changed a lot.
it changed since 2001, that's for sure.
Yeah, the master plan, basically, it is in the master plan. It's just identified as for ski area uses. Yeah.
We have a ski area use.
5 would be two homes, I assume.
Yeah.
Lots.
Yeah, and that's and I'll show you that again. That's a to be determined. Do we sell those as single family lots or do we build smaller homes that would be part of the timeshare use plan? Not walk-off homes, but just say like a 3,500 square foot home that more than likely one of our current owners would say, yeah, we'd rather be in a home than share a hallway with a bunch of other people. We'll upgrade to 2 weeks in this home. And that's just our mountain home. And we have not made a determination based on our needs for additional inventory, whether that should be single family or it would be part of the timeshare use plan. That's to be determined. So those are the 6 parcels. And if you had to, at the end of the day, at the end of this presentation, or tomorrow when somebody asks you about this, or over the weekend, if you had this, my hope is at the end of this presentation, that this agenda, that's the table of contents for what we're doing right there. That my hope is that I'm clear enough in explaining this, that you could take that map right there and get the whole thing. Parcel 1 is vacate the entitlement and move that density off that site. 2 is workforce housing and parking. 3 is townhomes. 4 is the multifamily building, and 5 and 6 are single family lots.
And is 6 timeshare homes as well?
No, 6 is single family lots, no short-term rental. I don't know if they're in the short-term rental, if that's in short-term rental zone or not. would not be a variance request on our part to loop that in.
It's zone 3, so it'll be difficult to get a license for any period of time. Right, Mark?
Correct.
Yeah, and again, so this sheet, if you just needed one, or, you know, to explain this to people or explain it to yourself or to review, this is the roadmap to this strategy, is this sheet. So how did we get here? BGV secured a master plan in the gondola lots. I talked about that a little bit earlier. On that master plan and where we were with our withdrawn application, there's, depending on how you slice one building, there's 5 or 6 large buildings on the North Gondola site. Those all evaporate, they go away. We would build the townhome still on the South Gold Rush lot. Original master plan that was approved a year and a half ago contemplated on the North Gold Rush lot a 1,000+ car parking garage, multi-level parking garage, if you'll recall, a gondola to move those people across the street to the existing gondola to avoid any pedestrian vehicular conflict on Park Avenue. And that large parking garage would also be vacated. The large parking garage would be vacated. The concept of having parking and housing there remains intact though. And I'll get to the details on that in a sec. So this is an overhead of our 2-dimensional site plan of the master plan. This is the large multifamily buildings on the North Gondola. Right where that arrow tip is the gondola base. You know, that's the loading area there, that big U-shaped building. The hotel is on the bottom. There's condos near the corner of French and Blue River, and then some other buildings on the northwest corner of that site. Site 2, these are, in my analness, these are also color coordinated to the other stuff. So light blue is light blue throughout, and purple is the workforce housing parking site. That's where the 1,000+ car garage was, with the gondola that's in the upper left corner of that parking structure. And then site 3 is South Gold Rush, which is where we would put townhomes, or we could have put townhomes. We will put, like I said, 8 duplex buildings there. This is a more current version of what was going to happen. And you can see that on the bottom along the Blue River, those small little rectangles, those are hotel rooms. And that had 86 hotel rooms there that go away. There were 143 at the base of the mountain in the previously approved plan, 86 here. So whatever that is, 235 hotel rooms reduced down to 35. So I think from a key count, human intensity standpoint, it is a dramatic reduction in the number of people coming to our community, or that are, you know, because that would be targeted specifically to the free independent traveler. This is not a convention center. It's not a business deal. This is about attracting people that are going to give Breckenridge a whirl. And we're not a hotel town, and we've got a couple of hotels, but the reality is that we're a condominium community largely. And this would have created some space inside that market segment of hotel rooms that we're okay with walking away from. The 2 larger buildings in the top are condominium, and then in the right-hand corner, there's some townhomes there along the river.
So Mike,
Oh,
sorry to interrupt, but
you're good.
when you're talking about losing the hotel rooms, they go to condominium. Basically, they're going from hotel room use to short-term rental or to timeshare use. I mean, I'm assuming all your condominiums will be managed in a timeshare or interval ownership style.
There's yes, we're trying to figure out just how much we want to build. I mean, we're trying to figure out just how much timeshare inventory we want to build. As we understand the wishes and desires of this body, what we need is a business metric to make this thing pencil out, those kind of things. I'm excited to be here today because there's so many hypotheticals that I mean, that, you know, the 3-ring circus in my brain right now is on full alert. I mean, it's hard. There's a lot of jugglers going on in there right now. So we're trying to figure that out in a way that we're committed to a goal of less. We are. In some cases, it's going to be less square footage on the North Gondola lot. In some cases, it's going to be more square footage because if you add in the single family homes, but in all cases, it's going to be less people. Those are condo buildings and the townhomes again there. This is a view of what the fourth level deck was going to look like next to the gondola. That's the rooftop of the building that of the application we just withdrew. We were close to getting ready to hit the button on this. That's a pool in between the buildings, and you can see the 4-story elements that surround that surface pool. Again, there are 6 big buildings in the core of town that are now vacated and will be permanently vacated if we, move forward on this proposal. So the Tetris at 30,000 feet, redeploying the 143 SFEs, workforce housing 12. And I'll issue another caveat here would be that if we increase the number of hotel rooms, say from 35 to 40 hotel rooms, that's going to change the formula for the number of workers created. And it could change that 12 to 13 or 12 to 15 based on different kind of uses. Regardless of what the uses are, in terms of the consumer uses, we will use the density that we have to satisfy whatever the policy number is for workforce housing, with 25% of the 35% being on site and the balance being off site. There's not an ask, will not be an ask to use additional density from this community to satisfy our development responsibility.
Do you consider Gold Rush lot on site for the
No.
East Peak 8?
No.
Okay.
We have this generally in the 75-25, I'd say it's about 6,000 square feet on site, and then 15 to 18,000 square feet off site is generally the way that we think this is going, and it modulates based on uses and based on if square footage has a short-term rental license or doesn't have a short-term rental license, and how many condos are, that it modulates. And so we're trying to work, diligently on that. We still would use 30 SFEs in the townhomes. For those of you doing the quick math, times 1,600, that's 48,000 square feet. That is 16 3,000 square foot townhomes on the South Gold Rush. It's consistent with the approval inside the master plan that was approved. And that leaves, adding up to 101 in Tetris, that leaves 101 to migrate up the hillside to be allocated to lots 5 and 6, and the balance allocated to the larger building. Again, to reiterate, we get absolute limits 288 SFEs. It's kind of complicated in the sense that there's different SFE values from a developer standpoint on the SFEs that exist, because the 143 that are on the gondola, that table of density and how they can be used are protected by the master plan that's in place. The 145.8 at the admin site are now under the jurisdiction of the new code change in 2023. And so now you have 288.8 SFEs that if you mush it all together, there's kind of 2 different rule sets that govern that, which is one of the reasons why we need to have this collaborative discussion, have a business development agreement that identifies how you would deploy those 288.8 in a way that's consistent with the goals of the community. You get where I'm going with that, because the 145.8 are fundamentally worth half of what the 143 were before, right? And so
how many of the 145 are for Vail's use for ski patrol locker
18.
rooms, or 18? 11?
Commercial and 7 service.
Okay.
And so let me change that. 7, because it's 7 service. The commercial would run with the property for a restaurant or a spa.
Right.
So
it's the 7 that the ski area is going to use for whatever those
skier
functions.
services.
Okay.
Skier services. And I don't, I don't even know what that definition is, or if there is one in the master plan, but whatever that definition is.
Definition.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Has a bunch of uses.
Broad, it
Yeah.
it covers anything from locker rooms to like, ski shop.
Okay, so with that said, I'm back to the big map again, and we'll start with parcel number 1, which is the north gondola lot. And I'm going to go through each of the 6 different silos or 6 different parcels, discuss them, and at the conclusion of each one is what I would say is a town council decision point. And by that, I mean, it's a question that I'm not expecting an answer today. I think it'd be premature and wrong to actually ask for one today. I think that in the spirit of being collaborative, I want to give everyone the opportunity to absorb this, think about it, think about their questions, and come back with those questions. But I want to frame the decisions that I think will govern the micro decisions that fall out from that. The Christy Lydell Matthews is working with us, and Kulik and Mark have been awesome to work with. It's unimaginable the amount of nuanced details that boxes that have to be checked to make this happen. And if I started rattling off the code provisions that we'd have to get through, we wouldn't even get through this lot in order to facilitate that. So what I'm trying to say is that 30,000 feet, let's sign up, let's stack hands on the idea, and then we'll figure out the details. And we would negotiate the details with the staff, and then the staff would present them back to you for approval so that you still have jurisdiction over the final approval of the deal. But we would work through the micro, we'd get into the weeds with the staff and try and keep this discussion in this room at a high level with the council. So you give direction to staff, and we'll work with staff to vet out the details on this. So there's parcel number 1 at the start end point of the gondola. And that's currently owned by BGV. We would vacate the entitlement and it would remain parking. There's, the parking agreement that was signed way back, 20 years ago, has 1,560 parking spaces prescribed in the core of town. And then the parking structure on South Gondola do not offset that. And so whatever is in there, I don't know what that final count was, that's not part of the 1,560. And so there's an affirmative responsibility of this development and to honor the agreement that exists between the town and the ski resort to preserve and protect 1,560 parking spaces. So that would remain a parking lot.
Mike, while you're there.
Yeah.
Well, it actually goes with this next one. Truckee, how do we change the agreement that we have that allowed Vail to move density between properties and take this out of that equation? So Mike deeds it back to Vail. Vail owns the property. Vail then says, hey, we have a little extra density on, I don't even know if they do, but originally we had an agreement that allowed them to move density between Mountain Thunder, the old Breck Hotel, and a couple other sites, and they could move it at random. How do we remove this from that equation?
Yeah, so I think most of that's been kind of finalized now. I mean, there's an agreement to move density off of the South Gondola lot up to East Peak Hotel. And so Mike's already accounted for that and what's up there. The other density is, I don't believe there's just a open-ended allowance to move density around other than on the gondola lots themselves and the Gold Rush.
There
lot.
was, we had an agreement that they could move from any site to any site. I want to make sure we look into that.
And I think we should make a note to make sure, because it could be a covenant, some sort of restriction attached to that property and filed.
I want to make sure that
That it
we,
couldn't receive density.
And
Mountain Thunder burns down and they decide, we're gonna, in 20 years, we're gonna strip the density off of that and we're gonna move it over onto North Gondola.
I think that's a great example of something that would be baked into a development agreement that says this is forever a parking lot. Unless there's nothing that this is not a receiving site for more density. And our intention is to use all of this density to strip it so there's nothing left. And the only way something could ever be built there is if a future council in their infinite wisdom decided to put more density on to go back and build a big building there. Call me up when that happens. So.
Can't do anything about that one.
Right. So we would deed that property back to Vail. And as pursuant to our letter of intent with Vail on this. And the decision point for the council is just what we were talking about, is the permission to port that density from parcel 1 up to 4, 5, and 6. That's the decision point for the council. This one's pretty straightforward in terms of what the decision point is, but that's the essence of it. And you can see this is the kind of the baseline for all 6 of the parcels. It's here's what we're doing, here's what we need you to do. And then you can see that as a subset of moving it up, there's going to be 15 different things that are part of a lengthy contractual agreement between all 3 parties.
And Mark, our ability to move density from here to 5 and 6.
Yeah, be through the development agreement.
Okay.
Yes.
Other questions for Mike at this point about North Gondola lot?
Okay, keep going. Appreciate your attentiveness too. There's a lot to go through, and I don't want to make, I live with this, right? 24/7. You guys get to see this for 2 hours every 6 months. And so I'm trying to make sure I'm presenting it in a consumable fashion. And I appreciate you guys giving me the time to do that. Parcel 2 is the wedge on North Gold Rush lot. That's workforce housing and resident/skier parking. So what we would do on this site for workforce housing is that we would build a podium. And so you'd park cars underneath the podium, both residents above and the overflow for skiers. I think we all have lived here long enough to know that the overflow of parking for both South Gold Rush and North Gold Rush are rarely used. But in the events that they are, we still have to live up to the terms of the 1,560 parking space agreement with the ski resort. And so we would consolidate the parking that exists today on North Gold Rush, add the 110 spaces from the South Gold Rush, and then park the number of required parking spaces for the workforce housing, which would go above. And so with the density that we have, or the density, our density and our requirements per whatever the policy number is, we would build a certain amount of housing required to fulfill that on this podium. The ask for the town council is the council willing to provide the additional density in a to be negotiated fashion, assuming that it fits on the site and the economics make sense to both or to all 3 parties to provide the additional density on this site. Now, several years ago, we had a discussion about putting workforce housing on this site and it didn't go forward. I would suggest that today it's an entirely different set of circumstances. Across the street on the North Gondola, before were going to be 6 very large buildings and a lot of people. Today, in this proposal, that goes away. And so I think it kind of shuffles the deck on the intensity of people in the core of downtown. It's significantly less by vacating those buildings. And so this is a central element to the deal because Vail wants to be a financial partner with us, either through ownership or a master lease to secure upwards of 150 bedrooms. They're committed to spending money to deliver workforce housing. And this is a way to, like I said, for all of those, especially the larger employers in this community that create a majority, not a majority, but a lot of jobs for us to economically offset and contribute to that solution. And so this is, I think, the right place for housing because it allows these workers to commute on their feet, their bike, or public, whether that's the buses or the gondola. Housing that, in my opinion, is built north of town on Airport Road invites people to drive into town and circumnavigate our downtown core, trying to find a place to park to go to work. This housing is people that are in the core of town and can easily get to their jobs without getting in a car. And it's why I strongly believe that this is a great spot for workforce housing because it decreases vehicular congestion and delivers beds for our workers in a privately funded fashion.
Like, what's your,
I apologize.
what's your car count on this, do you think? I know it's not set in stone.
It's roughly 600. Let me revise that answer. Let's just say that roughly 300 and change for the parking agreement. And then the number of additional is a function of the number of keys that are upstairs on top of the podium.
Right. And how many
so-
for the, and none for the townhomes, because the townhomes are gonna park at the town.
Separately. Yep.
And is,
Go ahead, Kelly.
is this something where it would only have to, like Gold Rush now isn't open every day of the year, so it's open on, 30 to 40 days. Is that sort of the same? Could we use it the same way, or would it have to?
Yes.
I mean, obviously, people who lived there would
Would have access to it, and how, I don't know how you guys have your parking fee arrangements worked with the parking vendor as well as the ski resort, and who collects and how they do that, and how you manage what fills first, and if you have different pricing strategies for surface versus structure, or surface for, versus protected from the elements a little bit. I don't want to pretend to know how that is operated. But I would say that the intentionality of the space on the North Gold Rush is that it's overflow, and it would be infrequently used.
But in regards to getting people across,
Yep.
like we've talked about, what's the best way? And I know that, as part of the traffic study, there are roundabouts all throughout this. So is that still something that would be considered?
Yes, and we would, again, when you talk about subsidizing the funding, a roundabout's another, I don't know what was just spent on.
6 million.
So maybe that we've got a 4 million line item in this, and I don't know if that's high or low, but I think, or I don't know if that's too low based on what you just spent, but
That was a big one, though.
we
with
don't have
Watson.
we don't have as many, as much stuff around it as what the Watson roundabout has. And I would also say that we would await the opinion of a traffic engineer. I've heard versions where that roundabout on French wouldn't do anything to abate or to lessen congestion. That the traffic lights both at Airport Road and then heading out they block. And so relative to people getting across the street, whether it's a roundabout with islands or it's a signaled metered intersection where people can self-select and stop that traffic, whatever is, I think most of you are here and we showed the videos of people running across Park Avenue. I want nothing to do with that, right? I want to make sure that we figure out a way to get these people safely across the street and in the most efficient fashion. And our goal, again, is to lessen congestion in this community to the best, to lessen it to the extent that BGV and this development can help lessen it. That's our goal. And so if that means roundabout, so be it. If that means a signaled metered intersection, so be it. I'm not a traffic engineer and I'm not going to pretend to be one. I'm going to listen to what these folks tell us as a community as they think is the best solution and then go forward from there. But relative to decision points, Kelly, if we say that, we want to do work, we're willing to put, I'm just saying hypothetically, town council is willing to put density on this site. And you'd say subject to it fitting and subject to getting people across the street safely to your satisfaction. That's what I would expect, something like that to be said in this setting. Right. And then we would work together with staff to see how we solve that to the council's satisfaction.
Good. Well, go ahead, Rick. With the traffic engineer, I have concerns, in the one we select. And I hope we could be collaborative in selecting one because, that study on Ski Hill Road, we listened to 200 citizens sit out there and tell us that study was wrong, that they didn't agree with it. That study, we were told that study said that there was no problem with the intersections there. And I know anyone that's tried to go to Peak 8 during peak times would disagree with that. We had 200 citizens. So
I think
just a little skeptical with relying 100% on an applicant selected traffic engineer.
I get that, but that in fairness, that same engineer said it was a D level of service or maybe even D minus, and it wasn't going to degrade the service level. And so I think his analysis was consistent with the neighbors that it's not good, but it's not going to make it materially worse, is what his conclusion was. Whether you believe that or not, not to debate that today, but I think that his conclusion was it's not good, right?
Hopefully at the end of this, we don't accept any not good. Because I learned a lesson in the process from the citizens that were very displeased with that. So.
Well, I think that there are things that we're proposing to do at this building that are going to lessen the vehicular count from what was previously approved on that site. I know that what was previously approved is gone. It doesn't matter, but you know, there's some validity to a previous approval that, you know, 7 people said we're okay with this and approve that project. And so as a baseline comparison, I say, can we do better than what was previously approved? That's, to me, seems to be a reasonable threshold for me to try, or for BGV to try and achieve as a developer. Let's listen to what I mean, I've heard you say this to me countless times, right? Or not, I won't say countless, but more than once you've said this to me, right? And so I understand that I feel an obligation to, as best I can, say that this is better than what you previously approved. Am I going to satisfy you 100%? Zero chance of that. I mean, I'm just not. But I think that we can say that we're going to have less cars and have this be materially better. And I think that when you layer in vacating the multifamily in the core of town. See, my belief is that Mike Dudek, traffic engineer, says the problem is Park Avenue, right? And Main Street, getting people out of town. It's not Ski Hill Road. It's you can't make a left-hand turn off of Ski Hill Road. The problem is Park Avenue, in my opinion. And when we vacate the large buildings in the core of town, we do things that lessen the congestion on Park to get people out of Ski Hill Road faster. And I think there's some legitimacy to that point. I don't know what the car count would be, but I less is more in that, you know, in terms of easing congestive issues in our community, I think.
Rick?
I don't want to get into a big discussion on this, but I would just throw out there as council's thinking about this, that if we're truly looking at how do we minimize congestion, and to me, we're putting housing and more parking on the wrong side of the highway. And if we're not using North Gondola for anything but surface parking, deck North Gondola, build your housing on top of the deck on North Gondola, then we don't have to worry about these people crossing the highway. I've dealt for years and years and years with South Park Avenue, and it's a mess.
And I would say that what is contemplated in our letter of intent with Vail is parking on North Gold Rush, as long as we preserve and protect parking counts. And that if the direction of this body were to say, let's try and figure out the feasibility of putting a podium, the housing on North Gondola and preserve, you know, still leave
Same number
North,
of spaces.
assuming that there's not a visceral knee-jerk reaction I can't speak for them. I'm not authorized to do that. I would just say that at face value, it makes sense. And if that was the direction, then we would, I don't care. And I've told you that in meetings we've had. It means no difference to me. And if this community thinks that with respect to vehicular pedestrian conflicts, that's a way to abate that, then I'm in on that. I mean, I'm in. I have no qualm with saying, let's put it over there and keep the overflow on North Gold Rush. So with that, here's in words, there's that wedge on 2. So the current master plan has both workforce housing and structured parking contemplated, right? And so all we're really saying is more of the housing, less of the structured parking. And so it's consistent, if you will, with the master plan that was approved. We would build about 45 beds. That's our code requirement for the building that we would propose. And then we would want to, again, privately fund in partnership with the town and Vail Resorts up to another 255 beds. That fits on that site. That fits on the podium that would run over the top of that surface parking is 300 beds in the core of town. And again, funded with the collective proceeds from people that we would sell lots to and sell condominiums to, and that would use hotel rooms, that the people that put the burden on this community, the more workers, are there's a direct line, a straight line from those people to solving workforce housing. And I would venture to say that you've never heard that before. You can see a direct correlation between your decision to say yes to this and the delivery of more workforce housing. And it's a straight line. It says, if we say yes, this will happen. And like I said, the community candy is first. The workforce housing is the first thing that gets built. That's part of our agreement with Vail. Before we get into building big buildings, before we get into selling lots, before we start selling townhomes, we have to do and fulfill on the housing before we can do anything else, before we can CO any other parcel of this or sell anything else. We must complete the workforce housing. So the community comes first.
Hey, Mike, on those
Yeah.
255 additional beds or
Yep.
up to 255, what would be your ask or expectation of the town for the density on that? To share it with Vail, to absorb it completely, where BGV and Vail would be be supplying that? How would that work in your?
Well, I mean, I think that in order to keep the rents affordable, I'd ask the town to contribute the density, but nothing else. I think that, I mean, God, I mean, 15 years ago, we had, you know, death battles in here about density and balance sheet and stuff like that. But, you know, you can create this body can literally create density and can allocate it, or you could, oh, I didn't know that, but can take it from the density bank and allocate it. And I view it as a non-cash transaction. I view that it's not the same as saying, give us land or give us utilities or things like that. I think it's a non-cash way that the town can contribute to the housing. And so the town would contribute the density and we would build all of it. And we're doing a project in Edwards right now that is all workforce housing. It's manufactured housing. We're building 87 units, and Vail Health, who could be a partner in this as well, is agreed upfront to purchase 27 of the units and is master leasing the other 60 of the units. And so before we break ground, we've got the whole thing dialed in. And so we would likely be in a space like that with the ski resort, where for the additional 255, my guess is today that we'd more than likely have a master lease from the ski resort to guarantee the rents on, you know, 100 or 150 or whatever the number was at the end of the day that they wanted for their staff. And then they would have a long-term lease on those units.
Would we be able to participate if we're providing the density from the TDR bank or wherever we're getting from? Would we be able to participate in some of those units?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if the town wanted to execute a master lease on those, I'd love that. I would love nothing more than to have 300 units that BGV master leased 45, the ski resort master leased X, the town master leased Y, and that was all 300. I mean, that's my best case scenario for this workforce housing play, is that they are spoken for before we break ground.
That SFE number is in the 70.
I can figure it out real quick. I mean, I need a calculator. It's 300 square feet per bed is what we have, times 255 divided by 1200 is what the SFE count is. If somebody can tell me what that is.
I'm concerned about the delta.
255 times 300 divided by 1200.
So sub 70.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the SFE. And so somewhere
60s.
So somewhere between zero and somewhere between 0 and low 60s, right? So if the council says, pursue this site, you know, a fit test, those kind of things. And if we did a fit test and it turns out that only an additional 200 beds are going to work pursuant to that, then that would be the ask of the community for the density.
I just want to make sure I have this right. We're going from 255 to 300 when we're talking That
the
300 includes the 45 that you're providing the density for. Okay.
255 more than what we're required to provide,
Want to be sure we're all.
up to 255. That podium, that wedge can handle 300. That's where that's where that number comes from. So we're working backwards from that 45 for us up to 255.
I know this is a micro question, but when you say podium that'll handle 600 cars and workforce housing that'll handle 300 beds, how tall of a building are we talking?
Land, that's a good question. That land, I mean, next time you drive by it from either direction, there's a pretty good grade running from south to north as you head out of town. And so I don't have this slide, but as you lose grade, if you will, heading north, you can put a second level of a podium in there. So it's not just one level, a portion of it would have a second level to it, and then the housing on top of it.
So at the north end, 4 stories? No.
At the north end, there'd be 2 levels of, so at the south end,
And then.
right. So, okay, let me
how many
just,
levels
so
of house?
if this is grade at the north end and there's a podium, there's housing here.
Right.
As you go this way, this podium that's right here stays at that level. And so there's one more level as you gain grade. And so it would just be that it'd be the tallest on the north end and measured from ground to the top of the roof, it'd be the shortest at the south end and tallest at the north end.
Yeah. So how tall at the north end ballpark?
I think that if you count 2 levels of parking, it's 3 stories, 1.5 story, buildings. And again, that'd be something to decide. If we didn't want to have that kind of height, then we'd say, we really want to be in the space of 200 because we don't want that kind of height. And so what we would do is we would take direction from you on the range that you'd want us to problem solve to considerations. We'd go back and work with our architect, Bill Campy, who's here. And we would take into account the comments from this and then come back with, here's what 150 bedrooms looks like, here's what 200 bedrooms looks like, and here's what 300. I don't want to go on a goose chase of having to do 17 different iterations of this. But if we wanted 2, like here's a small BGV, here's a medium, somewhere in between, here's the large, then I think we can use something like that to gauge our appetite for what it's going to look like at the end. So the decision point is obviously what we've just been talking about, which is that council permitting additional density to go on this site pursuant to fit test and economic negotiations. I understand that they'll have some concerns about the rents and things like that, and that's all well and good. I mean, we're trying to look. I firsthand get that the shortage, I believe, that we have for housing in our community starts with the frontline workers. It starts with our front desk clerk. It starts with your person washing dishes. It starts with the person getting their first time job in a childcare facility. They need something that's very affordable to make our community work. And I just say that, BGV doesn't work unless Breckenridge works. And so I'm not trying to be altruistic about saying I want to build housing. I think that even if no BGV employee occupied any of the units, if we build 300 more units, it increases the supply in this community, that increases the number of workers, and it makes the community work, I think, a bit better. And so I think this is a central part of making our community work better. BGV doesn't work unless Breckenridge works. Our owners want to eat in your restaurants and shop in the stores and ski on the mountain. And that doesn't work if we don't have employees to service those people. All right, so parcel 3 is build townhomes. This one's pretty straightforward because it's already baked into the current master plan, which calls for townhomes. We're thinking 8 duplex buildings, 16 total units. There's no short-term rental zoning variance asked whatsoever. And the decision point merely, as it's more procedural, is to preserve the master plan and the ability to build the townhomes on the South Gold Rush.
So the buildings themselves are 6,000 square feet.
Yes. And this only shows 6, but there would be 8. This is, wow, this cursor's working out. Okay. So 6 buildings around there, there would ultimately be 8. And that's what they look like. And this is part of the one of the previous submittals. So there's a demising line in right down the middle here. So 3,000 square feet on this side and 3,000 on this side.
Any questions about that?
Okay, so now on to parcel. Are we good to keep going, Eric, or?
Please.
Okay.
Oh, no, we got time.
Okay. So parcel 4 is hotel and timeshare condos. And this is a zoom in on the base of the ski area, and that circle is encircling the end of the gondola. And that's the administration site. In the bottom center of that site, you can see the admin building there. This map shows, so Ski Hill Road is right here. All right, there's one Ski Hill Place right there. That is that kind of L-shaped parcel for the large building. Those 2.4 acre parcels are parcel 5. And there's the land for parcel 6. And you can see underneath the yellow arrow base is the maintenance facility building. That's what was previously approved. These are the townhomes that kind of climb up the hillside on that little small little part of the L. I don't know what you call that. And this is the main hotel building. This is a massing model. Looking at it, look, this is the same view we just have, but a massing model. And when I say, Dick, that this is going to get smaller, what you see in pink on this side are places where we're eliminating square footage from this building. One of the complaints in the previous approval was the proximity of this building to one Ski Hill Place, as well as a loading zone. And just, you know, contextually overall, I think that this project has a lot more, is a bigger win if this building is a little bit smaller than what was previously approved. Just if for no other reason than to say it got smaller, then I think that's a good thing. This is the rendering of what was previously approved. And you can see right here, this little tunnel is the entrance to the facility. This is what was previously approved. This is a massing model showing the entrance to the building. The purple dashes are what was previously approved that goes away. So you can see there's a fair amount of building that's going to be vacated. This entrance right here is for deliveries. The previous approval had the delivery trucks swinging through one Ski Hill Place and basically doing a U-turn, then driving up into the property, which had rightfully, I think, the One Ski Hill Place Owners Association up in arms on this. And so Campy and his team has designed this building to be smaller per our direction and was able to eliminate that weird service connection. We don't have a place for pallets and drop-offs and, you know, easy delivery. Like, that sounds pretty cool what's happening in Vail, but that's not part of this. So we have a service entrance here. So we're not infringing on any other property or not using any other property's land to get to access. And we've also pulled this building. One Ski Hill Place is right over here. We pulled this building back from One Ski Hill Place. So we're making it smaller and listening to complaints that I don't think were adequately addressed in the previous approval. Not that you had a responsibility to address them. The building passed its point analysis and was approved appropriately. But in the spirit of being a good neighbor, when you hear things like get it away from our building and have a different service entrance, this accomplishes what we thought were the 2 primary points of contention from the One Ski Hill Place Owners Association.
So the service entrance would be coming from what
Oops.
road?
I don't know how to go backwards.
Right off Ski Hill.
Right off Ski Hill.
Right off Ski Hill.
Yep. Sorry. I clicked forward and didn't see. So before you asked. So Lionheart's entitlement, now owned by Leste, is now expired. This site is still governed by the Peak 7 and Peak 8 master plan, which runs through November of 25. The same building concept, but smaller footprint, smaller massing, smaller hotel. We've taken the hotel from 143 to 35. This is a big thing that I think is what probably you guys remember this, but a lot of people in the community don't. There was a ski club that he was gonna put in here that had 100 cars and a fancy locker room facility. And they were going to charge a lot of money for people to join their club so they could park at the base of the mountain. That's gone. And we're not going to do that. And so those 100 cars that were up and down Ski Hill Road on a daily basis for that ski club are gone. And we will not put a ski club in there.
So just,
Never approved.
yeah, for a point of clarification, the club was denied by the council at
Oh.
Novo.
Okay. Well,
Unanimously.
but the parking counts in the garage are going down. And once we get a little bit more direction, then we'll be able to give a precise count of what the overall parking reduction or car reduction is in this building.
How about parking?
How about what?
Parking reduction. Are we gonna reduce the parking along with the car reduction?
Yeah, I mean, there'll be less parking spaces underneath the building. Yeah. It was overparked and we're gonna park it appropriately. The BOEC still has their home there, with an elevator access up to the snow, so they can bring in handicap accessible vans, park them and get their clients up to the snow it's a very cumbersome process today to get some of their guests onto the snow. So the decision point in this parcel at the highest level is to allow the gondola density that's on the site, allow the gondola density to move up to this site, but under the jurisdiction of the new code. Right? So we're not moving 80 SFEs up there and making the building 50% bigger. We're moving 80 SFEs up there, keeping the building a bit smaller. And again, when I started socializing this before the code changed, I legitimately thought I was going to say, we're going to reduce density by 80 SFEs, and that I can't say that today. We need those 80 SFEs to build that building. Okay, so parcel. Oops, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I still have the question about the units, but we'll get, that'll come.
Yeah, I mean, just generalize as we go through this. Go ahead, Mike.
Let's see, where am I on this sheet?
2 acre lots.
Yeah, the 2 acre lots. So 2 1/2 acre lots on parcel 5. And okay, so there's the site map, which shows this is turned 90 degrees. There's the admin site where the larger building would go. And in blue are those 2.4 acre approximately sized lots. 4 o'clock road runs right down here. There's a gate right here today. This land's owned by the ski resort, and so would merely extend this road or create driveways off of the terminal point of this road here into these homes or into these home sites.
Access for the neighborhood.
Is preserved. I mean, however it was working, I don't know how it was working.
Don't really.
And there's, someone dumped a pot of spaghetti up there on the land and said, here's all your ski access. I mean, they're through all the different trees and whatnot. And so we worked through this before when we were involved with this. Jane's house is, I think, this one right here. And so we figured out a way to traverse in between the townhomes when I was still involved. I don't know what happened with that at the end of the day on that. But we're committed to working with the neighbors to make sure that they get what they are used to and accustomed to. So this is pretty straightforward. It's these 2 parcels that, so 2 single family home sites. I'm undecided as to whether or not they need to be included in the timeshare use plan. There's 2 different versions of this out there for us. The decision point is to allow, however procedurally it needs to happen to allow this density to be placed on that site and turn that into home sites. I don't know what the technical version of that is. These guys do and Christie does.
Questions about these 2?
What is the short-term rental zone directly adjacent to those 2 lots? Is that a 3?
But it's adjacent to the admin site, which is in 1.
Yeah, but we're not talking about the admin site. We're talking about 5, those 2 4.4 acre lots.
We would want this to be part of, this is the only one where the parcel 6 has 0 short term. This is the one that the decision point is if it's gonna be a part of the timeshare use plan, that it needs to have the short term. If there's single family lots, it doesn't.
I think the way the code's written, Dick, because of the proximity and the attachment to the resort, it would be included in it. As part of a resort property, right?
Correct. It'd be the resort property as opposed to zone 1.
Well, we'll just keep that in the back of our mind.
Okay.
Right, next. Parcel 6.
6. So parcel 6, again, 4, 5, and 6, and you can see that all in the blue there. I've walked this. There's some great sites along here. There's some pretty good sites in this. And so there's going to be some site challenges with it, but there's also some very, very nice flat lots in there too. This is Elena Scott from Norris did this preliminary site plan. This is the parcel of land that we're talking about. This is the ski area maintenance facility. This is Timber Trail. Timber Trail, there's 18 homes in here. And you can see what Elena did is have lot sizes. They're very consistent with the lot sizes that are in Timber Trail. We're not trying to change the flavor of the neighborhood, trying to keep it consistent. There's a platted easement at the end of this cul-de-sac that runs right through here to access this land.
How many lots is it?
There's 20 on here. Our summary sheet says to allow up to 20. My guess is this turns into 14 at the end of the day, which comes back to your question and is part of the Tetris that if that turns into 14, those 6 make their way down the hill to the parcel 4. We intend to use all of the density. So
Those lots be ballpark?
they're drawn, I can't go backwards on this. They're drawn to be, those were the smallest one was 3/10 of an acre on that. Is that right? 3/10 or 2/10? 3/10. 3/10 of an acre. And there's some that are upwards of half an acre, or a little bit more than that, especially the ones that are long Trigbies that are snowfront. Those are some of the larger ones there. So we would, up to 20 single family home sites is the way we would begin the process on that. And then we would go through a fit test to see what it would actually work. We'd agree up front to limit the gross square footage inclusive of garage to 7,500 square feet on these homes. They have to, there's an economic need for them to be of a certain size. In order for the lots to sell for a number that is consistent to provide the subsidies that we're modeling for the workforce housing and roundabout or whatnot needs to happen subsidy wise. We can't have a lot and put a 3,000 square foot house on it. That's not going to work. I think you guys all get that. These are going to be very, very, very expensive parcels of land, as they should be, because there's no other homes on the ski runs in Breckenridge, and there's very few sites like this in Colorado for that matter. No short-term rental zoning variance ask. These are just all long-term holds. And the decision point is to allow the master plan or however that needs to work to allow 20 home sites depending on fit on that site. Yes, sir.
Single ownership, or would these
Single.
potentially be?
No fraction.
So no fraction.
No fraction, and that can be baked into the business agreement that we have.
Mike, this is kind of going into detail, but it's just, we talked about it earlier. Would all these properties that we're talking about, would they adhere to REMP and some of these policies that we're talking about now with outdoor energy use?
Whatever the prevailing code is, I mean, that's what they'd be built under. So they would have to conform with the prevailing code.
So when you say you want to go back to the previous code, that's just for as density goes, not for building code. So what I hear you say to Jay's question is building code will be current code.
For these homes, but I know that there's some considerations on REMP and others for the building 4 parcel, and I'd like to reserve the answer to that question because there are some things that there's some in our mind, there's some ambiguity on those things that we need to have sorted out in order before we can make commitments on what we can and can't do. There's fees on REMP that I don't know the current status of it. And I don't know how that plays into this. And I don't know. And so I'm not going to say something irresponsible when I just don't know.
Parcels 5 and 6 in the town limits now.
I believe so.
Yes.
I believe that 5, the county line terminates at that fence, the gate that's there. And then this one quite clearly is because that's all ski resort stuff there. I wanted to kind of discuss a couple of things that I think that are important relative to potential questions on this plan. One is square feet versus head count. 20 SFEs, an SFE is going to yield 3 or 4 hotel rooms at 1,380 square feet. But let's just call it 3 beds per SFE is 60 total beds. The occupancy rate, Lucy could confirm this, but we did studies for the hotel at 100 and whatever the number was down in town. We would expect a 55% annual occupancy, which is during the days and times that you would guess between Thanksgiving and the ski season, end of June through early August, weekends in September, that kind of thing is when you'd see 55% or 201 of 365 nights of those beds occupied. That's a total of 12,000 and change room nights if we use those same 20 SFEs for hotel. But we're using them for single family homes. And assuming 5-bedroom home, which is considered, as I've talked to other realtors in the community, especially those familiar with the properties in Shock Hill and Timber Trail, which would be analogous to what we would expect to be built up there. 7,500 square feet is about the average of those homes and 5 bedrooms per house. That's a total of 100 beds. Again, not a formal study, but anecdotally and talking with several realtors, these trophy homes, these 4th homes are used on average 5 weeks a year. If you have 10 million, you've got for a house in Breck, you've got 100 other million.
I'll take
right?
your word on that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. But you have there, it's 5 weeks of the second home, 35 nights. That's 3,500 total bedroom nights for these homes. And so Mark is, like I said earlier, is going to correctly tell you that there's more square footage in the homes, which takes the square footage count up and over what was previously done. The intensity of human beings in our community goes down by a factor of nearly 3.5 by not doing the hotel rooms and doing largely unoccupied second homes as a alternative to driving the economics that make this work and provide the financial resources to build the workforce housing in the core of town. So there is a trade-off. There's a legitimate question of more square footage in the form of single family homes with the gain of fewer people in this community on a year-over-year basis.
Well, you're not building those homes, though. You're just selling lots.
And if we ended up being a general contractor on that'd come down the road.
But those don't, if you were doing them, they would go up immediately. How long did it take to build out Timber Trail? It's been, I mean, it's been 10 years probably to build it out.
I wouldn't build, I mean, I'm not going to go build houses. I mean, no.
I think it'll be a while to build that out. That's right.
I mean, we'd have to build the workforce housing first. And then, the utilities road up there and then sell the lots. And then you're looking at a year of planning and a couple years or more to build some of these, very elaborate homes. And that if you sold everything on the first day, you're 3 years post the completion of the workforce housing before you get these
That
houses
won't happen either. People won't build those houses right away. There are people that'll buy those lots and say.
and sit on them. And in today's economic environment, that's not a bad, what they say when there's blood in the streets by real estate. I mean, when those interest rates go up, it's real estate's a great hedge against inflation these days.
Yeah, Eric, it was back probably almost 20 years ago, Timber Trail started up and there's still at least one vacant lot there.
Okay, so I'll just scratch the first item on this next slide. So quickly, I can't make it go away right now, but eliminate downtown multifamily traffic. I talked about that a little bit before because we get rid of the big buildings in the core of town. And we will end up having less cars up there than what we previously did. A, there's gonna be less cars in count, and B, the number of trips those cars take is going to be less. When there were 143 hotel rooms up there versus 35, the average length of stay for a hotel room guest is going to be about 2.5 nights. A condominium stay for us is going to average just north of 6 nights. And so the vehicular traffic is cut in half when you go from hotel rooms to condominiums.
I know I keep hearing this, but when we add the timeshare model, it goes up to 90% occupancy, which really skews these numbers. So I'm struggling with your math right now, but I don't want to be argumentative. I just need to make that statement.
Okay, well, and then I would also say that when we're at 95%, the hotel is at 100%. And so I think there is an apples to apples comparison.
Well, you've told us before you're 90% during May.
We're in the 80s in May, but we're in the high 90s during the times that the hotel will be occupied. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I don't want to be argumentative.
Okay.
I just wanted to make that statement because I don't agree with that at all, that you're going to decrease Ski Hill Road.
Okay, well, and at the end of the day, I think we all are trying to figure out how we can say, can we have less buildings in this community and less human intensity?
Just
And,
making a statement on that one.
and
piece.
one thing I'm certain of is you and I aren't going to agree on everything. So,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
And so we can agree on that part right now.
We can agree to disagree on this one. So.
That's easy. So that's not why I came here though. So let's to agree. I'm not going to agree with Dick. That's not why I'm here. So, so this is a summary of the decision points. On parcel 1, it's move the remaining SFEs. Parcel 2 is to add density beyond the minimum provided by BGV to deliver additional workforce housing. Parcel 3 is to use the existing master plan to build the townhomes as is prescribed in the master plan that was approved. Parcel 4 is to allow the majority of the gondola density to move up to this site to build a building that's similar but smaller than what was previously approved. And parcels 5 and 6 are to allow via some legislative action to have that density placed on those sites. The timeline on this would be that assuming that we advance and have the have the development agreement discussions, and that is going in the right direction or finalizes, that in the second quarter of 23, we'd finalize development agreements sometime this summer. Quarter 3,
Like next week.
Oh, well. Oh, yeah.
Quarter 2.
Yeah, no,
ends in
quarter 3,
3
sorry.
weeks. Yeah.
No, I got home late from the game last night. like You guys did too. So,
So did I.
yeah. Well, all right. So quarter 3, 23, the finalized development agreement, quarter 3 of 23 through whenever that's done. Through this time next year, we'd be in planning to do things like building approval, site approval for the lots, all that kind of stuff. And quarter 3, we'd go of next year, go vertical on the workforce housing, whether it was on lot 2 or some other to be determined location. And then after the workforce housing is complete is when we move forward on the other elements of this package. I would just say in conclusion that we as a group, the people in this room can choose how these parcels get built rather than being subject to a buyer and the code that exists. We can choose the restrictive elements that we want, and we can work together to make sure the things that are important to this community are embodied in a development agreement with a known developer that's going to deliver the results that you expect. But in the space where I get hit by the bus tomorrow, the development agreement will run with the land and it'll be incumbent upon anybody to fulfill. And so I'm merely the messenger today for a development agreement that allows us to collectively determine the outcome of these 2 multifamily parcels. Whoops. Oh, that's how you go backwards. There's a little wheel on there. And I do genuinely believe that this is a community first strategy. I tried to listen hard to people talking to me in the community about not building in the core of town. And when that parcel at the base of the mountain became available, and in talking with Vail Resorts, I had a moment of clarity to say, yeah, we can make this happen, where we can vacate in town and move the majority of the density to where it belongs, the base of the mountain, provided we can do the additional home sites up there. And there you go.
Thank you.
Thanks for your attention and questions.
Rick, what is your timeline for us to have discussions on this?
Well, because this went way longer than I thought it was going to, but it's good. I think it's a good overview for you. You have lots of things percolating in your head. What I'd like to do is have Mark go through with you their sheet that they've developed that lays out the densities, and you can really see a visual. Yeah. I think it'll be quick. What do you?
Well, I'm just thinking, we haven't had time to think about this. I mean, I've talked to Mike about this a little bit, but I don't know that everybody else, I feel like everybody needs to think about this now.
Well,
I think what we wanted to do, this will show the breakdown of all the
piece
SFEs
of
and everything.
information for you to,
It's-
yeah, we're not
I don't want anybody to have to make a decision. this
no,
evening.
no,
When-
no.
That's what I'm asking is when does council have to be ready to make?
I think what we're gonna do now is we're gonna talk, we're gonna say, what does July 11th look like? That's when we're coming back together again. And we're gonna really start getting into questions, concerns, stuff that you'll direct towards us to, which may involve some extra us meeting with Mike on some things.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood that. I thought we were gonna start hammering.
I don't want, that's why I printed this stuff on paper so you could take it home and think through this.
I don't want anybody thinking this is a rush.
I'm not asking a specific question tonight, nor am I expecting any kind of answer. My goal was to present this idea and this strategy in public for you to be able to consume it, for the public to start consuming it. We'll hold an open house between now and the next council meeting so that we can get additional public feedback. You'll get members of the constituents to talk to you as well, evaluate what staff has to say, then circle back on the material, business points that matter to the council.
Thank you, Mike. Go ahead, Mark.
Thanks, Eric. Thank you, Mike. So what we have here is table that Chris has pulled together using information that Mike's team provided also. That outlines, goes the first column over there, the first shaded 3 columns, if you will, shows the approval back in 2020 for the East Peak 8 Hotel. And that's for comparison purposes, showing the density there. And then if you go down to number 4, you can see where it says 148.8 SFEs, 302,000 square feet of density. Everyone see that on the sheet? Okay. And then right below that is 143 lots that are just allocated throughout the gondola lot project. Then if you move over to the next 3 columns of shade, that's what's allowed by the code as of June right now, based on the changes that the council made last fall, basically eliminating the mass policy. So what's shown here is that you could have 145.8 SFEs in number 4 there again, down lower for the admin site. But the square footage associated with that is going to reduce by about 100,000 square feet down to 201,000, because you need to provide any common areas, hallways, lobbies, stuff like that, stairways all count as density now. They're not freebies like they used to be through the mass bonus that we had.
Mark, is amenity space that says exempt under master plan, does that continue to be exempt?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, that's governed by the master plan. So that was a provision where we did that 600% that's written in, but it doesn't have an exemption for the remainder of common areas other than something that qualifies as an amenity or a conference room.
Okay.
So then if you look further down on the sheet allowed under the code, then it outlines how that density is broken down by South Gold Rush, North Gold Rush, and North Gondola. And is that based on the recent approval? Chris?
That's based on what was proposed on the application that was just withdrawn this morning. We didn't have that breakdown on the February because that wasn't even contemplated, the master plan, but under the second column, that was what was on the books at the time of the withdrawal.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, so then moving over to the third row, if you could go up just a little higher there. We just have a total number from Mike's team right now in terms of the SFEs, 224.3 for East Peak Hotel. We don't have the breakdown yet of how that all looks, you know, the hotel versus the condo versus, you know, the commercial and that. So
But
that's,
we will get that, Mark?
yes, they will be providing that to us.
Yeah, I'd like to see that for sure.
Yeah. Yep. But with 224 SFEs, that equals about 280,000 square feet. And that's an estimate that Chris has provided here. And then the gondola lots master plan, we've got 42.5 SFEs there, and that's comprised of below under number 3, South Gold Rush lot 30, as Mike mentioned, 30 duplexes, SFEs worth 48,000 square feet. And then number 2, North Gold Rush, that's where the workforce housing is. And what's included so far here is just what Mike needs to do to satisfy his requirements. We still need to verify all that, but that's more information we have to do later. But that's a 12.5 SFEs or 15,000 square feet. Further down, nothing on the North Gondola. Then we move down to the Grandview, we're calling it Grandview Single Family Home Lots. It's the subdivision. And that's where we've got 20 units right now. And at an average of 7,500 square feet each, we've got 150,000 square feet there. Then number 5 is we're calling them the chalet homes, what Mike showed, those 2 lots. And that could be up to 15,000 square feet, but just count as 2 SFEs if they're, because it's unlimited density for the, anyway. We get down to the bottom and you see that the SFE count is 288.8 is exactly matches up with what was approved before and what the zoning allows. The square footage does change that number, as Mike alluded to, also largely because of the single family that's being added to the project. The other thing that's on this table is we started to do an evaluation of some of the issues associated with each of these properties. And this is just a kind of a starting point for when we move to July 11th. These are some things we can be, you know, the council can be thinking about, as well as other things you want to bring to the table in terms of the discussions on each of these 6 areas. So yeah, that's an overview of how this all shakes out. We'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Okay, on the chalet homes, you said those are treated as single family with unlimited square footage. But Mike was talking about them being part of the hotel. So at what point is it not a single family if it's part of the hotel?
It's
Around the
said-
short-term rental license
Yeah.
discussion.
If I may, if they're single family lots, they'd be 75, they'd have the cap of 7,500 square foot homes. If they were part of the timeshare plan, they would, I would expect them to be about 3,500 square feet for each home there. Is that, I don't know if I answered your question or not, but
I guess,
It's currently up in the air.
okay.
Yeah, we treated it like we did the subdivision where we figured it'd be 2 single family lots, 7,500 each.
But if they decide not to do that, they'll be smaller and in the timeshare pool.
Be the same number of SFEs at that point?
It would, they'd just be 3,500 square feet instead of 7,500 square feet.
And 90% occupancy instead of very limited.
35 or whatever.
in the homes, I think the homes might be a little bit different because we would sell like 2-week packages to people, or we'd sell them a 1-week package, like a fixed winter week, and then they would have a float week in the shoulder times that they would never use. And that would be part, that's we would sell like 26 weeks with 26 attachments to it that and the kind of dead times. And so
I can see
I
how.
think if they're
some of your-
homes, I don't think that they're gonna have that level of occupancy.
Discussions I look forward to having. Yeah.
If you do on that math there, I just realized with Mark's stuff there, 94,000 more. There's 165,000 square feet of homes in that. And so if you zero out the homes, there's 70,000 less square feet between the two before you get to the homes
Buildings.
in the big buildings. It's 70,000 less square feet in the big buildings.
So that's 15% or so. 1.5, yeah.
Yeah, 514, yeah, 70,000, yeah, right around 15.
Here's what I would suggest. If there's any additional questions that
Just
you have, we
questions.
get those out on the table right now. I think we're at a time period where we don't want to jump in and start anything.
No.
What I do want to, there's a couple things I want to check in with the council on with your flexibility when we start building the July 11th agenda. It's a little fuller than tonight, so I think I want, to try to have at least another 2 hours to really sit down in this. And so if there's some flexibility, we might consider starting a little early, the work session on that day.
Never, Todd,
Yeah, you bet.
are you gonna be in town or?
No, I mean, I'm scheduled to be at a family vacation at the beach, but I'll fly back for this and I guess I'll miss 2 days of it. But
Mike would love to have you away.
I'm sure he would.
I'd want you to be here.
No, I'm not gonna miss this discussion, so.
How are you guys for?
Yeah, I get it.
starting at 1 or 2 o'clock instead?
Yeah.
Good.
So, so maybe what we could do, Eric, is wrap this up, and then I do have a couple things I want to go over with the council. I don't think we need to break quite yet. If we could take another 10 minutes and do a couple of other items, would that work?
Yeah. Eric, could I just make a general statement in public? Mike, I might be the loudest voice, but the way you started, I'd like to also get an opportunity to, I don't want to be argumentative. I'm passionate in some of my feelings about the community and some of the impacts on the community and the balance of fractional ownership or the short-term rental model and the non, and we've talked about all this. And it's not personal, and I don't want this to become adversarial. I think conceptually this thing's got chops. And I look forward to working with you on it. And I am passionate and I do want to be able to agree to disagree. And I hope that we can get to a place where we both feel it's workable.
I totally 100% agree with that sentiment. I would want you to be in the room because the best way for us all to get to a good place in this is if all of the concerns are on the table, whether we all agree to them or not, we don't have to, but we can reach the best conclusion if all the ideas are out there. And I don't take it personally. I take it as a challenge to say, how can we get a better deal? I'm trying to really hard to do the best thing for our community, as are you. So we're aligned on that goal. And if we stay there, we're going to be in a good space.
Great. Thanks.
Todd, anything to add? Nope. Kelly?
Thanks for coming to us with this.
Can I ask one question, just because I just need a clarification? You said that on the hotel, it was previously 143 rooms and it's going down to 35 rooms. What am I missing on there? What else is that? Are all the rooms?
Square footage turns into, so the multiplier goes from hotel to condo. So the square footage gets smaller and then it turns into condos.
So the remainder of the change of 143 to 35 are condos.
That's correct.
Anything to add to that, Jay? Carol?
Yes, because all this was in our packet. Can we make it publicly available? There's going to be a tremendous amount of interest from the community. So just so they have it to look through.
No.
Thank you.
Talking about this quite a while ago and I taken a look in it and yeah, see where it goes.
Thanks. Good night.
Good government.
To you grandfather. His son
Gumpy.
had a kid last night, so. Friday.
Yep, thank you.
Happy and healthy?
Happy, healthy and home. So
Great.
good stuff. Oliver Michael.
Oliver.
Oh, I love that.
So it's a boy?
Like, it's a kid in the hospital.
I'm not changing a diaper. I'm not going there. So I've done 10 billion of those in my life.
Come on.
No chance. Anna can do that if we're on duty.
Quick question
Didn't
for the
remember that.
council. Housing, as they're putting this lottery together, needs a kind of a last minute decision. They started off, you get an extra ball, if you will, for residing in Summit County for 10 years. They were not going to count that time under 18 years of age. Meaning if somebody grew up here and they were 19, doesn't mean they would be eligible for that, but they're rethinking that and they're wondering your opinion,
10 years is 10 years.
I think 10 years is 10 years.
whether you were 2 or whether you were.
If you grew up
20.
here, you get another ball, actually. No, I'm not joking. We want kids that grew up here to stay in the community, so.
I'm biased. I have two 19-year-olds and a 22-year-old, but I agree with Eric. I mean, I think we do want a next generation to stay here. They have a perspective that's unique.
Is the question raised because it's non-voluntary time? Or like what, what is?
I don't know if they felt maybe they were thinking originally that they weren't working in the community. They were raised here and they weren't working in the community, but it's clearly pointed out time before age 18 didn't count towards it, but now they're looking to rethink that. And going back to those and making sure they make it fair and clean it up, but they're willing to rethink that and they really wanted your input on that. So
Yeah, I think 10 years is 10 years.
we will let them
Yeah.
know that.
Yep.
Other thing, there's the High Valley Micro Transit Tour. There's a group from Summit County, they're looking at the potential for micro transit. The manager at Frisco, Tom Fisher, came out of Summit County, Utah, where they had a pretty successful micro transit in that region around Park City. And they're taking a group out to Summit County, Utah, Park City, to look at that. We're gonna have 3 staff going. We're gonna have Matt James and Scott Reed. And it's a quick turnaround. They'll be pretty much spending Monday, July 17th there. They'll get there the night before and come back the next morning. But if any of you want to attend that quick turnaround, let us know. Again, Monday, July 17th, but I think we'll have it pretty well covered from our perspective. Just want to put it out there. That's all I have. You want to do reports real quick, or do you want to eat?
Yeah, let's do reports quickly.
Right. Jeffrey is hungry. We had MMC.
There's like no.
What did we talk about?
We spent the whole day really looking at the nicotine presentation, so.
Yeah, we did.
But they're doing a great job. They got some great programs going on out there with the nicotine dollars. And so the managers will be meeting with them to finalize the budget for the next year. Look at that. So
And Wu-Tang Clan's coming to Dillon Amphitheater. That was the other big news. Wow. And sold out.
Dylan's thinking about fireworks again.
Dylan's mentioned fireworks and we all groaned and moved on. Open space, Jeffrey.
We didn't have a meeting, but we will.
Tourism,
No, I don't.
history.
Meetings tomorrow.
Hey, well, maybe it's not. Is the 10th Mountain Division statue, is that history or is that BCA?
It's BCA right now. We sent a copy of an email that we got from the Public Arts, had a meeting. I don't have it in front of me, but they,
Do an update.
Yeah, and I
Go
brought
ahead.
this up
Keep going.
probably 5 or 6 years ago now, and nothing has happened.
Okay, Todd's gonna take care of it.
Brett Create just says they're in a holding pattern. The 10th Mountain Division Foundation is preparing new interpretive content, but has not provided copy for Breck to schedule repair or order new signage. So
It's been a long time.
We're
It's
talking
been a
about
frustratingly long time.
for repair.
Yeah, those signs are trash.
Couldn't
It
agree
looks
more.
terrible and it's in the center of town.
Yeah.
And I think it does a disservice to the 10th Mountain that
I agree.
we need to be on the ball on that.
yeah, we'll push that up on the priority list.
And that's an important piece. It maybe needs some maintenance too.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
just
but
like
some of
the-
the structures that holding up the plaque and are falling apart.
Look terrible.
Yeah.
Next to the,
Dredge.
It's the skier in the middle of by the parking lot.
skier by the parking lot.
So history, what do you got? Nothing?
Meeting tomorrow.
Okay. Creative, anything to add, Todd?
Yeah, you should see just one more thing here. Hold on, let me delete the note there. The Thompson Memorial should be getting installed. So 16-foot statue going in there right behind the town sign. It's one of the guy on the snowboard. And, Tamara sent me a picture. It looks really cool. And it'll be a nice intro to the town.
Snowboard.
Nice. Good.
The Nelson bench is really nice, I thought.
What is?
The Nelson.
Oh, yeah.
Todd and his mom's bench. Yeah.
Anything to add?
Nope.
Childcare?
Nope.
Social equity.
We have a meeting next Monday.
Any other matters that you want to talk about now? Let's drag this on a bit because Jeffrey's getting antsy.
I paid more attention to these last 2 hours than I have in my prenup.
I am, you don't have a prenup,
You don't.
unless she wrote it, unless you signed one.
She wrote it.
Anything else? All right, we're adjourned till 7.
Ready?
Oh, yeah, let's do it. Buck chop, 30 minutes.
I'm going to call to order the June 13th Town Council meeting. It is 7:01 PM. Roll call, please.
Kelly Owens. Dick Carlton,
Here.
Jeffrey Bergeron,
Here.
Carol Sade,
Here.
Jay Beckerman,
Present.
Todd Rankin,
Present.
Mayor Eric Mamula.
Yes, I am here. Approval of the minutes for May 23rd, 2023. Rick, anything? Anybody? Anything? Good, good. Minute stand is presented. Agenda, Rick. Agenda stands as presented. We have communications to council. We begin with public comment. These are non-agenda items only. 3-minute time limit, please. Mr. DePeters.
Hello, Mayor and Town Council members. My name is Dave DePeters. I'm the CEO of the National Repertory Orchestra. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. Even though the weather's crappy outside, summer is right around the corner. And we know this because this Sunday, June 18th, the NRO musicians will return to town. We have a great season planned, and I want to share with you a couple of highlights. This year's musical theme is the immigrant experience. We have commissioned composer Chen Yi to write a piece about hers and her husband's experience of coming to America from China, and the embrace by American society. Each concert this year will feature composers with similar stories, and we will be featuring music of 10 living composers from diverse backgrounds. Highlights also include, of course, celebration of 30 years of the NRO in Breckenridge. Yeah. Who would have thought? This, of course, it corresponds with the Riverwalk Center, and we were very happy to be working with the BCA to celebrate this occasion. The town of Breckenridge will be receiving the NRO's Outstanding Community Service Award at opening night on June 24th, and I hope you will all join us for that occasion. The concert will feature a new work, a premiere by composer David Zubay called Ridgeline. It's the same composer that wrote the very first piece of the opening concert when the Riverwalk was opened 30 years ago. Ridgeline is an 8-minute piece depicting peaks 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 here in Breckenridge, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Another great highlight is Midori coming to town. Midori is not only a world-renowned violinist and a world traveler, she's also a UN ambassador for peace, and she is a fantastic teacher. She will be doing great things with our musicians as well as entertaining our town. We have very proud of many, many partnerships that we have in Summit County. Each year we choose 3 not-for-profits to bring greater attention to and to help raise money. This year, we're proud to be partnering with Habitat for Humanity on July 1st, Mountain Dreamers on July 19th, and the First Responders on August 12th. We've changed some things in our ticketing this year. We will be offering, as always, a family pass for 2 parents and 2 kids, although if you have 3 kids or 4 kids, they're all invited. For $143, the entire family can come to every single Masterworks concert this year. It works out to be about $2 a ticket. We also offer for 17 and under, any person can buy any ticket in the hall for $5 for every concert. And we've raised our gold level seating by $5, but we've lowered our silver and bronze level seatings by $5 to also help local Summit County people afford these concerts. And we also offer a local Summit 8, or I'm sorry, a Summit Local 8 discount, which is an additional $8 off of these tickets if you prove Summit County residency. So we have 87 musicians coming to Breckenridge, 19 paid and unpaid staff, 8 weeks long, plus an extra week for some participating in the BIFA Festival. And we are partnering with BCA again this year to provide the classical music for BIFA. We have 7 guest artists and 2 world premiere performances. 16 performances in the Riverwalk Center, one being a free family concert and especially invited our local preschools and day camps. 1 free chamber music concert, 55 free open rehearsals, and 44 free community programs throughout Summit County, most of those in Breckenridge as well. We're also bringing back our alumni string quartet, which are mostly brought here for our preschools and our day camps for activities and support. The other great thing is this year, they will also get to perform for the July 4th concert. I'm sorry, for the July 4th parade. So they'll be part of the parade this year.
Cool.
We're still trying to figure out how to get the roller skates on the cello. NRO concerts are designed for everyone in Breckenridge. We program with you in mind, and we accept people from their own space and where they are. It doesn't matter what you know, what you wear, or who you are. We hope you come to a concert and are uplifted by, inspired by our talented musicians on stage and the music that fills the Riverwalk Center. Thank you.
Dave, thank you. What's the 24th? Is that a Saturday?
Saturday night.
night. Any questions for Dave? All right, great job, man. Looking forward to it. Anyone else in the audience wish to participate in public comment tonight? Public comment is closed. We go to continued business. We have second reading of Council Bill number 19, Series 2023. This is a bill for an ordinance amending the general offenses to prohibit carrying concealed firearms in town buildings.
Mayor, Council, the first and second bills are related. The first, as you mentioned, is to prohibit carrying, well, we already prohibit open carry. And so this first bill is to prohibit carrying concealed firearms in town buildings. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Anyone in the public wish to comment on this second reading this evening? No, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
On first reading, second reading, I move we pass Council Bill number 19, Series 2023, the title which has been read into the record.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Any further discussion by council?
I'll reiterate my position from a couple weeks ago that although I feel like the spirit of this is well thought out and honorable, I do think it continues to be unenforceable the way it is. It's token legislation that doesn't make us, our guests or our residents any safer. And it's all stems from a single one event in which a guest of ours at the ice rink, who in my opinion probably did not possess a concealed carry weapon permit, who was uneducated, had an unfortunate event that luckily did not affect anyone or did not harm anyone. And I just don't think this is good legislation, and that's what I'll be voting no.
Thanks, Jay. Anyone else? All right, with that, roll call, please.
Councilmember Rankin,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlton,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckerman,
No.
Councilmember Owens,
Yes.
Councilmember Sade,
Yes.
Councilmember Bergeron,
No.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes, Jeffrey lied to me earlier.
I'm just fickle.
We have another second reading. This is Council Bill number 20, Series 2023. This is a bill for an ordinance updating the town buildings in areas where open carrying of firearms is prohibited.
Mayor, Council, this is existing code. We have had on the books the prohibition of open carrying of firearms in public buildings. This was really just to clean up the buildings and remove some of the open areas. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you. Questions for staff? Anyone in the public wish to comment on this second reading? Public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
On second reading, I move we pass Council Bill number 20, Series 2023, the title which has been read into the record.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Sade,
Yes.
Councilmember Rankin,
Yes.
Councilmember Owens,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlton,
Yes.
Councilmember Bergeron,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckerman,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. With second reading of Council Bill number 21, Series 2023. This is an ordinance amending the Breckenridge Municipal Code to adopt by reference the National Electrical Code 2023 edition. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and everyone. Rick Fout, CBO of the Building Department here for a second reading on the proposed adoption of the 2023 National Electrical Code. I'll see if any of you have any questions. I will first say that this is a state required adoption and that there has been no changes since the first reading, hoping that will help.
Thanks, Rick. Any questions for staff? Anyone in the public wish to comment on this second reading? Public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
Hear ye. I move we pass Council Bill number 21 on second reading, that series 2023, the title has been read into the record.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Beckerman,
Yes.
Councilmember Sade,
Yes.
Councilmember Owens,
Yes.
Councilmember Bergeron,
Yes.
Councilmember Rankin,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlton.
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. We have first readings this evening. The first is.
Thanks
the
all.
fir- Thank you, sir. First reading of Council Bill number 22, Series 2023. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 1 of Title 8 of the Breckenridge Town Code to create a program to reduce outdoor energy use and in connection therewith, establish fees for the administration of the program. Jesse.
Good evening, Mayor. Jesse Burley, Sustainability and Parking Manager for the town. This item is before you for first reading and establishes the above code programs for both residential and commercial renewable energy mitigation programs, also known as REMP. It also establishes the special fund where the payment in lieu revenues would go in the into the REMP special fund. And REMP is identified as a policy priority for greenhouse gas reductions in both the Sustainable Breck Plan and the Summit Community Climate Action Plan. And it is consistent with other mountain communities. Staff recommends that you adopt this ordinance on first reading.
Thank you, Jesse. Any questions for staff? Anyone in the public wish to comment on this first reading? Yes, sir. Please state your name for the record.
My name's Ryan Janine,
Ryan, spell your last name for me.
DINEEN.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
I've been living in Breckenridge for 16 years, and I'm currently a Breckenridge Ski Patroller and the president of the Breckenridge Ski Patrol Union. I want to take the opportunity to voice my support for REMP and to compliment the council on taking up such an important issue. As someone who works in a climate precarious industry, I see the importance of directly addressing the usage of fossil fuels and moving beyond the model of simply offsetting emissions through a credit system. I would also like to take the opportunity to encourage the council to be bold in the next steps that it takes in the future to tackle climate issues at the local level. Incremental steps will only change so much, so please know that if and when this council chooses to take a more aggressive path in the pursuit of just climate policy, those of us whose chosen vocation is intimately tied to a healthy winter will be on your side.
Ryan, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? You guys just here for support? Well done. Great job. Thanks,
Yeah.
Ryan. Anyone else in the audience wish to comment? All right. Is there a motion?
On first reading, I move we pass Council Bill number 22, Series 2023, the title which has been read into the record.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? About fireplaces or anything? Roll call.
Councilmember Carlton.
Yes.
Councilmember Owens.
Yes.
Councilmember Beckerman,
Yes.
Councilmember Bergeron,
Yes.
Councilmember Rankin,
Yes.
Councilmember Sade,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. All right, we have the first reading of Council Bill number 23, Series 2023. This is a bill for an ordinance creating a new absolute policy for energy conservation and amending policy 33 relative accordingly. Mark.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. In conjunction with REMP and the outdoor energy use provisions that you just approved on first reading, this will make amendments to the development code, creating a new policy 33 absolute, which limits the number of fireplaces that can be allowed in a residence to a maximum of 3, and one of those at a maximum can be an outdoor fireplace. In addition, there's been some changes since earlier discussions regarding outdoor energy use. Now for residential uses, there will be 1,000 square foot threshold, above which every 250 square feet increment beyond that, there will be 1 negative point associated with any heated space outdoors. And finally, most importantly, I think, is providing incentives for electrification of homes. And we're offering up positive 4 points for that, either for new construction or for homes that are perhaps doing an addition and are willing to take the gas line out that's going to their property. So anyway, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mark. Questions? No? Anyone in the public wish to comment on this first reading this evening? Public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
First reading, pass Council Bill number 23, Series 2023, the title which has been read into the record.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Member Beckerman,
Yes.
Councilmember Owens,
Yes.
Councilmember Bergeron,
Yes.
Councilmember Sade, Councilmember Rankin,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlton,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. All right, we have three resolutions this evening. The first is resolution number 11, Series 2023. This is a resolution adopting the town of Breckenridge policy for advocacy on state and federal policy and legislation.
Mayor, Council, this is a proposed policy for adoption, as it says in the title, to advocate on state and federal legislation. This will apply to elected officials appointed and our boards and commissions. And it also speaks to how we interact with, that was not my fault. I got it. Internal and external stakeholders. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Questions for staff? Anyone in the public wish to comment on this resolution? Is there a motion?
Yes, I move we pass resolution number 11, Series 2023, which is so aptly read into the record by our town attorney.
Second.
I didn't think anybody would second it. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Member Bergeron.
Yes.
Councilmember Carlton,
Yes.
Councilmember Sade,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckerman,
Yes.
Councilmember Rankin,
Yes.
Councilmember Owens, Mayor Mamula.
Yes. We have resolution number 12, Series 2023. This is a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement for Summit County Child Care Tuition Assistance among Summit County, Colorado, and the towns of Blue River, Breckenridge, Dillon, Frisco, and Silverthorne, Colorado, and early childhood options.
Mayor, Council, if approved, this resolution would authorize the mayor to sign an intergovernmental agreement between the county and the towns that you stated for the joint operation of a countywide childcare tuition assistance program for the First Step childcare program.
Excellent. Any questions for staff? Anyone in the public wish to comment on this resolution? Public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
Yes, because children are our future. I move we pass resolution number 12, Series 2023, the title which has been read into the record.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Owens,
Yes.
Councilmember Rankin,
Yes.
Councilmember Sade,
Yes.
Councilmember Bergeron,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckerman,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlton,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. We have a resolution number 13, Series 2023. It's a resolution approving a grant agreement, Colorado Department of Transportation for the Blue River Recreation Path Underpass and Bridge Design. James.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. The resolution before you this evening will authorize the town to enter into an agreement with CDOT for the feasibility and design of underpasses and bridges for the Blue River Path. The town has previously obligated, it's a 50-50 grant, and the town has previously obligated its funds as part of the 2023 budget under the CIP budget.
Thanks, James. Any questions for staff? Anyone in the audience wants to comment on this resolution? With that, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
Yes, I move we resolve to pass resolution number 13, Series 2023, title which has been read into the record.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Beckerman.
Yes.
Councilmember Sade.
Yes.
Councilmember Owens.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergeron.
Yes.
Councilmember Rankin. Councilmember Carlton.
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. All right. Planning Commission decisions. Any call-ups this evening? Planning Commission decisions stand as presented. Other matters? Anybody think of anything during dinner?
Yeah, I have one. PG and I went to, excuse me, Charlie McCormick house and presented him with a letter that the town worked on for his work on the Bobby Joe and those two tragic murders that happened in 82, and he was very moved and said thank you.
Excellent. That's all.
Thank you for doing that.
And PJ brought him cookies.
Oh, were they
Yeah.
good?
Yeah, there was one missing.
Any other matters?
And
Yeah.
just a couple things.
Please.
I think Carol will probably end up reporting out on this when it occurs, but the BTO will be starting their resident sentiment survey. And they put together a committee similar to what they did the last time, and I think Carol will be the rep on that, so.
Sweet.
Lucy just wanted to make sure that got mentioned. And then I know this is a ways off, but hotels are getting booked already for the 3 days that are Mountain Town 2030 and Cast in October. So it's October 18 to the 20th. I know it's a long way out, but if you think you're going to want to attend, if you could let Peyton know. She reserved some hotel rooms, but we want to make sure we have enough for everyone.
Where is it? Oh.
Yeah, because MT 2030 will be at the first 2 days, and then that Wednesday, Thursday, I believe, and Thursday night will be Cast, and then Cast meeting Friday morning.
Sweet. Thank you. I have one thing. I went over to Rick Bly's house because he was just awarded for 45 years of checking the weather by the National Weather Service. 45 years. So he gets a pin for every 5 years, and they forgot his pin this time. It was a little bent about it, but it was awesome. And I had some pictures and stuff. Did you see him? I'd like to do a little press release for him. You know, Rick's been for a long time, but I mean, he goes outside every day and measures snow, measures rain in the creek. So it's pretty cool that he's been doing that. And I did not realize that the Weather Service relies on local people he gets paid like, I don't know, some ridiculous amount of like $15 a month or something to do that. It's really crazy, but it was pretty cool. And I'm glad I went over. So cool. Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that awesome? Anything else? Go play hockey. All right. I got him out by the 7:30 he asked for.